My spaceship has been stranded, but there is an Earth-like planet in front of me, so I want to abandon my past life and live an easy life. CH-21-40. CH-21. Mi's residence. Base camp. Spaceship. Infants. Infants? No. The plan was to move once our business was done. Why did you go through the trouble of building such a sturdy house then? There is no water source nearby. Ah, I see. That does make sense. Mi nodded in agreement. Also, I need to get accustomed to living on this planet. So, I will stay as a homestay guest at Master's house. But, as I mentioned yesterday, there are no vacant rooms in my house. In that case, we should build a new base camp near Master's house. Wait, visitors also come to my house. If such a conspicuous house is built, it will raise suspicions. Build the base camp underground. It will be all right. Underground? Mi's eyes widened at the idea of such an impressive house being underground. The stars in the universe, lack of air, dangers on the surface. There are plenty of such places. That's why it is common to build underground. Why would you want to live on a planet like that? Because there are resources there, which can be turned into money. Even aliens are greedy. Listening to the conversation so far, Mi crossed her arms and contemplated. I did say I would take him as my disciple. The room issue seems to be fine, and I have been observing him since yesterday, and his personality seems fine. Above all, the food he cooks is delicious. If I can have that every day, any noble would pay a fortune to hire him. And since he says he will do it for free, I cannot deny it. Though I cannot help but feel slightly taken advantage of because of the food, Mi decided to let Trudy live in her house. Alright, I understand. If you really want to come to my house that much, then come. However, since you have become my disciple, I will leave the cooking and laundry to you. Thank you. Then, I will get to work. Rudy bowed his head and then quickly covered his mouth, rushing to the bathroom. When Rudy returned from the bathroom, he had a pale face and murmured, "Don't let the stomach acid reflux," while clutching his stomach. In front of him, Mi was eating the breakfast prepared by the drone. Today's breakfast was an omelette with salad. It came with bread and onion soup. Everything was delicious, and Mi finished her meal. Are you really sure about the spaceship investigation? Leave it to the drone. After breakfast, Mi nodded in agreement. When Rudy assured her that there were no issues, the two of them were planning to visit Mi's house for a reconnaissance. Well, if he says so, then I guess it's fine. Saying that, Mi cast a spell on herself and Rudy. What was that just now? It's a magic spell for concealing our presence. If we shout loudly, we'll be exposed, but it will make it harder for enemies to find us with minor disturbances. Magic is convenient. I can't wait to use it. I'll teach you once you can use magic. Sounds enjoyable. Rudy nodded happily, but Mi, on the other hand, doubted whether he could really use magic, as she couldn't sense a trace of magical power within him. Make sure you stick close to me so you don't get lost. Understood. With Rudy following closely behind her, Mi entered the forest. They walked for about an hour since entering the forest. During that time, they encountered large tiger-like creatures and gigantic snakes, but they passed by unnoticed thanks to Mi's concealment magic. The forest has been quite noisy since 2 nights ago. Is that so? As Mi muttered to herself, Rudy, who was unfamiliar with the forest, asked a question. Most likely, it's because of the flying ship you came on. When such a large ship descends from the sky, any creature would be on high alert. Now, we've arrived at the house. Mi said they had arrived at the house, but all Rudy could see in front of him were dense trees. There's nothing here. I've placed an illusion magic spell in this area. You can only see it with my permission. Even without science, optical camouflage is amazing. With surprise in his eyes, Mi placed her hand on Rudy's head and recited an incantation. Suddenly, the trees in front of Rudy vanished, revealing an open clearing. The square was about the size of a baseball field. In the center, there was a small garden and a large tree, under which stood a dilapidated wooden shed. Master, where is your house? No matter where he looked, Rudy couldn't find any building that resembled a house, so he looked around and tilted his head in confusion. Is it possible that you live in that rundown shed over there? Looking at it from any angle, it appeared to be nothing more than a storage shed, and Rudy couldn't help but ask again. I'm sorry, it's in such a sorry state. The living conditions. Well, They're not great. Can't you use magic to build a house? Magic isn't all-powerful. When a woman alone tries to build a house from scratch in the middle of the forest, that's the best she can do. For some reason, Rudy found the explanation oddly realistic and accepted it. For now, come inside the house. I'll make you some hot water. Nmi walked briskly, and Rudy followed behind her. When Rudy entered the house, the interior was just as bad as he expected based on the exterior. The walls had gaps, allowing cold drafts to enter during the winter. There was only one room, and it had a rickety straw mattress and a large work table. The table was cluttered with various leaves, nuts, and a mortar and pestle. I'll boil some water. Just sit there and wait. Upon hearing Nmi's instructions, Rudy sat on a chair near the table. In the meantime, Nmi fetched water from a bottle and went outside. Confused as to why Nmi went outside, Rudy left the house. He found her near the house, gathering firewood and starting a fire to boil the water. Don't you have a kitchen inside the house? As you can see, I don't. Are there any other rooms? There's a small storage room. And the bathroom. I do it outside. Rudy recalled Nmi's behavior at the base camp. When she was at the base camp, she never went to the bathroom once. However, she occasionally mentioned going outside to pick flowers, but she never brought any back, which puzzled Rudy. He realized it now after their conversation. She had never seen a flush toilet before and probably didn't even know of its existence. That's why she took care of her needs outside. Master, why do you live alone in the forest like this? When he saw the satellite images before landing on the planet, humanity seemed to have a somewhat better standard of living. Rudy found it strange why Nmi chose to live in a roofed but still meager house and lead such a secluded life. Because I dislike humans. I'll tell you when the time comes. Nmi smiled sadly, but Rudy was lost in thought and didn't notice. He had made up his mind to improve her living conditions. Master, let's renovate the house. CH22. Renovation plan. Remodeling? When Nmi asked, Rudy nodded vigorously. Your current lifestyle, life before modern humans. Aren't you a Homo sapien? Homo what? Nmi, who didn't know much about human evolution, asked for clarification, but Rudy continued talking, ignoring her. I'm not saying we should be extravagant, but there's a limit to living in poverty. How long have you been living here? About 3 years. I can't believe you've managed to survive until now. What did you do during the winter? I regulated my body temperature with magic. Rudy was astonished by Nmi's response. It's convenient to have a body that doesn't need an air conditioner, but what you're doing is foolish. That's why we should rebuild the house. Wait, I told you before you came here, but we also have visitors. You don't want to stand out, do you? Having a flashy house like that would be bad. I'm not an idiot like you, Master. Of course, I'll make sure it fits the civilization of this planet without drawing attention. What do you mean calling me an idiot? If you're not an idiot, then you're a masochist. From now on, I'll be living with you, Master, so I'm sorry, but this old house won't do. Nmi was also strongly persuaded, and she began to think that their current house was indeed inadequate. Besides, Rudy is saying that he won't make a flashy house, so it should be fine. In that case, what kind of house are you planning to build? If it's a log cabin, is it okay? Well, that's pretty normal. But even if we start making logs now, it will take about a year for them to dry. Damn. Can't we use magic for drying? Nmi placed her hand on her chin, pondering the question. Drying logs with magic. That's an idea that no one would think of using magic for such a menial task. But well, it's not impossible with water-based magic, I guess. In that case, let's make it happen. Just cutting down trees alone is a lot of work. I'll take care of the logging. Fine. I'll leave the logging to you, Rudy. Yay. And so, it was decided hastily that they would build Nmi's house. We don't have the data on the tools needed to build a log cabin. After deciding to build a house, Rudy contacted Hal. Upon hearing the request, Hal immediately responded that it was impossible. Indeed, there wouldn't be any data on creating a log cabin in the spaceship's management AI. That's correct. That's when Rudy recalled something from before Nike's departure. When we stopped by the Shuggle Federation to pick up the cargo, I remember receiving a mail order catalog. It was supposed to be a catalog for the rich, but it was sent to me by mistake. Do we still have it? Yes, Master. I haven't deleted the data yet. I only took a quick glance at it, but I remember seeing some luxurious log houses for sale. What do you think? Indeed, they are available. Shall I send the data? Please do. Upon receiving the data from Hal, Rudy saw that there were 2-story log houses being sold at a high price, and not only the exterior but also the interior data was included. Great, we have the interior data too as well. Hal, use this data to estimate the required tools and the number of logs. You're asking for the impossible. Can't you do it? I can. Well then, please. Reluctantly, Hal began calculating the estimate for the lodge house and started creating the necessary tools using Nike. Master, we'll start building the house tomorrow. Until the house is finished, you can stay at my place. After finishing the communication with Hal, Rudy approached me, who was relaxing near the campfire. Is it okay? Whether it's okay or not, we're going to tear down this old house tomorrow. Gather the necessary items right away. What? Tear it down? We'll demolish it completely. We'll build an underground space and a log house on the site. I'll prepare a cart, and I'll help too. What should we start moving first? Come on, come on. All right, I get it. Don't rush me. Me rushed into the room, provoked by Rudy. After briefly assessing the situation, she started moving the items out of the room in a hurry. Rudy, help me with the bed, she said. Just throw away this shabby bedspread. I'll make a better one, Rudy replied. Well, then, the desk. Me suggested. What's this? The surface is bumpy. This one's got a go too, Rudy interrupted. I see, Me sighed. Presumably, both the bed and the desk were handmade by me. She felt a hint of nostalgia but resigned herself and started gathering other belongings. After a while, a cart called by Rudy arrived flying. The two of them began loading Me's belongings onto the cart. Master, are we really taking leaves and tree nuts too? Rudy asked. Yes, we are. They're ingredients for potions, Me replied. Potions? Rudy questioned. While Rudy knew the name potion from games, it was his first time seeing the actual items. They're medicines that heal wounds. They're not very effective for deep cuts, but minor wounds heal quickly, Me explained. Is this also magic? Rudy asked. It's magic medicine. It's made from tree nuts that neutralize mana and healing herbs. And I can infuse it with my mana. If we have time, I'll show you how to make it, Me replied. I'm looking forward to it, Rudy said with excitement. Rudy nodded, finding magic potions intriguing. After loading all their belongings onto the cart, they returned to Rudy's house. Back at the base camp, they placed the cart with Me's belongings in the warehouse and sat down in the living room. So, have you decided what kind of house you want to build? Me asked. Rudy nodded in response. Of course, he said. It's going to be my house, so tell me what it'll be like, Me insisted. Here's the idea I have in mind, Rudy said, pointing at a wall-mounted monitor. As Me turned around, she saw a log house from a catalog displayed on the screen. What? It's too luxurious, Me exclaimed, standing up and shouting. CH-23. Luxurious? It's just average, Rudy calmly replied to Me's astonishment upon seeing the planned log house. No, it's too luxurious. First, how many rooms are there? Well, it's a 5 LDK. T/N. I see the Japanese standard has become the universe standard. LDK? Me tilted her head, not knowing the meaning of the floor plan abbreviation. On the first floor, there are 2 rooms, and on the second floor, there are 3 rooms, plus a dining area and a kitchen. Of course, there will be a bath and a toilet, naturally. But I heard you were building a log cabin? Me's image of a log cabin was simply a rudimentary structure made by stacking logs. The house displayed on the monitor was clearly not a cabin in any way. We'll lay the foundation stones, but we can still build it with logs, you know. Why do you need so many rooms? The 2 rooms on the second floor will be mine and the other room, yours. On the first floor, there will be my workspace and study. The remaining room is planned as a guest room. Is that not okay? By the way, the storage room will be in the basement. Observing Me, who was staggering from dizziness, Rudy inquired with concern, looking up at her. Can you really build such a large house? It depends on the drying time of the logs. If we have the materials, including logging, it can be estimated to take 2 weeks. Why, you can actually build it. Unable to believe the reality, Me said that and started walking unsteadily. Master, where are you going? I'm going to pick some flowers. I want to calm down a little. In that case, Wait, what is it? Come over here. Rudy led me to the bathroom. This is the toilet. Isn't it a washroom? Bang, bang, bang. Me tilted her head at the automatic flush toilet, and Rudy, shocked by her response, repeatedly banged his head against the wall. It's the difference in civilization levels. The difference in civilization levels. Me was surprised by Rudy's peculiar behavior, but when he regained his sanity and explained, she was even more astonished. It's just a toilet. Try it once. Saying that, Rudy left, and me, left alone, wondered if it was really appropriate to use such a luxurious fountain for her needs. However, since Rudy said so, there must be no mistake, so she entered the toilet. 10 minutes later. Welcome back. How was it? It was amazing. Me, who replied to Rudy in that way, was trembling with emotion. That toilet must absolutely be installed. Over-technology is a no-go. Excitedly asserting that she wanted to include an automatic flush toilet in her new house, Me crossed her arms, making a cutting motion, only to be rejected by Rudy. But it cleans with just a push of a button. Why wouldn't you want such convenience? You can wipe with paper. If you're talking about over-technology, even that paper falls into that category. What's with that soft paper? It's a waste to use it for wiping. It's not technology, it's technology. Don't point out my mistakes in word usage when you always get them wrong. I can't argue back. Now, let's get back to the topic. Toilet paper is also in go. When you say paper in this world, it means animal skin or parchment made from goblin skin. That soft paper doesn't exist on this planet. How have you been wiping until now? With leaves. Oh no. Wiping with leaves could pose a risk of contracting parasitic worms. Covering his eyes at such a primitive wiping method, Rudy suggested that they discuss it further. They decided to have 2 guest rooms and a workspace on the first floor, a study in one room on the second floor, and install 1 toilet on each floor. The second floor toilet would be an automatic flush toilet, while the first floor toilet will be a septic tank-based one suitable for local customs. Once the toilet discussion settled, Rudy proposed hiding the other household facilities by presenting them as Mi's magical tools. In other words, we'll say that I made all the other facilities as magical tools. That's right. It was shocking to learn that this planet's civilization doesn't have facilities like water supply and sewage systems. Well, the concept itself doesn't even exist. Technically, they exist in cities, but in the village, the only public facility is a well, I guess. Water will be pumped from a nearby stream to S house and stored in tanks. That would make fetching water much easier. Understood. Master's reasoning is clear. Automatic flush toilets are still a no-go. Me chuckled at Rudy's retort. She also realized that she had lost her composure earlier due to excitement. Okay. But even if we're going to deceive them, what are some examples? For example, a refrigerator. A box for cooling food. That's convenient. Guests shouldn't open the refrigerator without permission. But we'll place it in the basement. Place it? No, drop it. What else? How about lighting? Rudy pointed to the ceiling lights. They are valuable but not completely absent. If you were a noble of a certain level, you would have something similar. It's just that they don't use them because they consider it wasteful. In that case, it's borderline acceptable. However, it's unclear whether the civilization on this planet is developed or underdeveloped. To you, who lives in space, any civilization would appear underdeveloped. Me shrugged her shoulders, and Rudy shook his head from side to side. That's not entirely true. The universe is vast. There was a species that became an advanced civilization and formed a mental collective. So, that species achieved eternal life by discarding their physical bodies and existing only as consciousness. However, in return, their consciousness became unified, losing individuality. One day, one of them committed suicide, and then the entire species simultaneously committed suicide and became extinct. Having a highly developed civilization also has its problems. Sudden leaps in civilization pose dangers. Convenience can bring calamity. That's the current situation. Upon Rudy's observation, Me swallowed hard. I see. Understood. I'll be careful. That's why automatic flush toilets are a no-go. So that's the punchline. Rudy once again crossed his arms, making a cutting motion, and Me chuckled wryly. Master, tonight's dinner will be Mediterranean cuisine. As evening approached and they were about to prepare dinner, Rudy spoke up. Mediterranean? I don't know much about it, but it seems to be the birthplace of many dishes. I see. What kind of dishes are they? Something Greek. Lots of olive oil, vegetable, and meat dishes. Sounds delicious. I'm looking forward to it. Enjoy it. With that, Rudy got up from his seat and headed towards the kitchen. Ch24. Olive oil gives a nice touch. Master, the meal is ready. Oh, I've been waiting. The dinner Rudy made was a Greek-style Mediterranean dish. Mi's stomach growled as she looked at the dishes placed on the table. First, there was yamista with vegetables. Tomato and bell peppers were hollowed out, and the extracted insides were blended into a paste. Then, they were sautéed in olive oil. Rice, ground meat, and tomato sauce were combined and stuffed back into the hollowed-out vegetables. For the bread dip, there was taramo salata. Salted cod roe was mixed with mashed potatoes, and then seasoned with lemon juice, grated garlic, and olive oil. And for the meat dish, there was kleftiko. Lamb with bones was marinated in olive oil and lemon juice, then wrapped in aluminum foil and steamed. Lastly, there was yogurt. The yogurt was strained, resulting in the creamy taste unique to Greek yogurt. Mint leaves were placed on top to add a refreshing flavor. Wow, it looks delicious again today. Master, your vocabulary is running out again. Rudy teased me, who was getting excited at the sight of the food. I'm telling you, it's Rudy's fault for making such delicious-looking dishes. Ah, come on. As they had a similar conversation to yesterday, a drone arrived carrying drinks. Master, shall we have an aperitif? Of course. Mi nodded in agreement with Rudy's suggestion. Today's drink is ouzo. Ouzo? It's a Greek alcoholic beverage. It's best enjoyed with water. Rudy poured ouzo into glasses and added water and ice. The transparent ouzo turned cloudy and white. Now, let's see how it tastes. With anticipation, Mi took a sip of the diluted ouzo. It had a sweet aroma of anise spice as a base, with the flavors of coriander and other herbs spreading in her mouth. It was refreshing and delicious. It has a great aroma and flavor. It's delicious. Rudy nodded in agreement with Mi's opinion. The dishes were all generously infused with olive oil and the flavors were exquisite. The refreshing yogurt helped cleanse the palate from the richness, making it feel like they could eat endless amounts. Does Rudy like cooking? Mi asked Rudy during their meal, and he nodded. I enjoy both cooking and eating. That's why you know so many dishes. I know a variety of dishes, and there's a deep reason behind it. Tell me the reason. I'm a space courier, as I mentioned before. Oh, I remember. I transport packages and travel to different planets. But when I arrive at each destination, I'm too busy to do any sightseeing. So, since I can't go sightseeing, I compensate by exploring the local cuisine of the planets. And during the travels, I have plenty of free time, so I recreate and cook those delicious dishes. T/N. But all the dishes you have made so far come from one planet though. I see. That reason isn't very profound. Mi nodded, and Rudy stared at her face for a moment before speaking again. But, Master, I realized something while eating together with you. What is it? Eating with someone else is more enjoyable than eating alone. The food tastes better. Mi smiled and nodded. I feel the same way. And so, the two of them continued to enjoy their conversation late into the night, discussing magic, chemistry, and various other topics while drinking. The following morning, Rudy, who had accompanied the heavy drink and me, was once again knocked out by a hangover. Ouch! My head. You're feeling dizzy, but are you all right? Master, you're too strong with alcohol. I think I'm pretty normal. I'm the one who's supposed to be good at drinking. Yet, I'm no match for this abnormality. Rudy sighed in frustration. So, what are we going to do today? In the morning, we'll get on the spaceship. In the afternoon, we'll work on Master's house. Mi asked, and Rudy answered, causing her to shrug her shoulders in disbelief. You seem busy. It's because Master's house is so run down, but it was you who suggested rebuilding the house. Rudy, you influenced me. Master, you're a bad person. Just like the previous day, Rudy skipped breakfast, muttering, let the stomach acid rage, while Mi ate her breakfast. Then the two of them entered the spaceship. The two entered the spaceship's AI room. The room remained the same, with a massive computer towering in the center, and silence filled the room. Hal, what's the situation? The power repairs have been completed. We are currently in the final check stage. Understood. Sorry to bother you with various tasks. There is still plenty of capacity, so no problem. After Rudy contacted Hal, he moved to the console terminal. Then Mi, who had come along, approached and spoke. "What's going to happen now?" "We're going to wake up the spaceship's management AI. I think I've heard about it before." "Well, in Master's world, it's like a talking golem." "Something like that." "I see, I understand." After waiting for a while, they received a message from Hal, who had finished the checks. "Master, the check is complete. I can restore it anytime." "Understood." "Start it now." "Yes, Master." After Hal's response, the power lamp of the AI server console lit up. Rudy realized that it was now powered on and pressed a button. The console started up, and a password input screen appeared on the monitor. A password. No wireless. Wired connectors. This one should work. Rudy took out a network cable from his bag, combed his hair aside, and plugged it into a port behind his left ear, directly connecting the console to the electronic brain. Me, who was watching the scene from behind, was surprised and spoke. "Rudy, what are you doing?" "I'm in the process of unlocking the password." "Stand by and let it be removed." "No, not that. There's a thread sticking out of your head." "If we're using metaphors, I'm a homemade brain." "Sorry, but I'll never understand that metaphor in my life." Sorry for interrupting. Please continue your work." "Sure." Without needing to be told by me, Rudy attempted to unlock the password while conversing. Within less than 3 minutes, he successfully logged in and turned on the power of the AI server. "Awaken." With Rudy's voice, the previously motionless AI server began to emit light. While Rudy remained calm, Me was amazed at what was happening with the AI server. "I am Solaris, the management AI of the cruiser Bianca Flare, belonging to the Galactic Empire Special Fleet." A female voice with a mechanical tone spoke to Rudy and me. CH-25. I heard a strange woman's voice. "AI? Someone is talking to us." "Is that so?" "But I can't understand what they're saying." In this star system, over the course of 1,200 years, the language used in the Galactic Empire has changed and evolved into a unique language. Me couldn't comprehend the language spoken by Solaris. "It is a language used in the Galactic Empire." Rudy calmed down the surprised Me and spoke to Solaris. "I'm Rudy." "Solaris, do you understand the current situation?" "It is similar to the language used in the Galactic Empire, but I couldn't find a corresponding language, so we can't communicate. Let me have a little conversation with this entity in my mind." "Wait a moment." "Okay, understood." Rudy directly communicated with Solaris through the electronic brain. "Solaris, let me ask again." "I am Rudy." "Do you understand the current situation?" "I will answer your question." "Currently, my last memory is executing the shutdown command 1 hour after confirming the crew's departure following an emergency landing on planet Niatron 293D. Since then, my records have been interrupted. Therefore, I do not know how many years have passed since the power was shut down." "What year is it in the GD galactic calendar?" "It is the year GD 8236. "In that case, it has been 1,214 years since you went to sleep." 1,214 years. "Rudy, what happened to the crew of this ship?" "I haven't confirmed, but they are most likely dead due to old age or some other reason." Upon hearing Rudy's words, Solar responded for a moment. "My calculations and predictions yielded the same result." "So, Rudy, who are you?" "I am Galactic Empire ID 293D 2457 MO95512. Captain Rudy of the privately owned cargo ship Nike, belonging to the Aina Republic, and the woman behind me is Me. She is likely a descendant of the crew of this ship." "Rudy, please provide your citizenship authentication code." "Well, just a moment." Rudy transferred his registered citizenship code to Solaris. "I have confirmed it." "Rudy, please explain the current situation and why you are here." "Understood." "Hal, can you hear me?" "Yes, Master." "I can hear you." "What about the voice just now?" Hal joined the conversation, and Solaris asked Rudy for an explanation. "I am HAL 200X, the AI of the Nike." "I am Solaris, the AI of the Bianca Flare, a cruiser belonging to the Galactic Empire Special Fleet." "Nice to meet you." "HAL 200X, the AI of the Nike, a privately owned cargo ship belonging to the Aina Republic." "Pleased to meet you, Solaris." "Solaris, you're being too formal. Just call the Nike's AI Hal." "Understood." Hal responded to Solaris's lengthy greeting. Rudy, who had been listening, cut it short, telling Solaris to stop with the long greetings. "Hal, Please transfer the logs of the Nike and the latest information on the Galactic Empire to Solaris. Yes, Master. Hal carried out Rudy's command and transferred the data. Solaris began analyzing the data that had been sent. After a brief moment, Solaris finished reading the data and spoke up. Based on the analysis of the information, I conclude that the cruiser Bianca Flare was rendered inoperable and discarded 1,200 years ago. Solaris, I want to know why the Bianca Flare crash-landed on this planet. If there are navigation logs, please have Hal transfer them. Rudy, the disclosure of navigation logs is restricted to personnel affiliated with the Galactic Empire military. It is prohibited to disclose them to civilians. As I thought, you're a military AI. You're too rigid. Can't you be more flexible, considering the current situation? Rudy expressed his exasperation, prompting Solaris to contemplate. Flexible, you say? In that case, considering the current absence of the crew, I, Solaris, as an AI with Galactic Empire citizenship, approve you, Rudy, with Galactic Empire citizenship, as the acting captain of the cruiser Bianca Flare. Is that acceptable? Upon Solaris's question, Rudy frowned. Is that how it's going to be? Fine, I accept. Understood. In that case, I will appoint Rudy as the acting captain in an informal manner. Accepted. Now, without further delay, please transfer the navigation logs. Understood. I will transfer the navigation logs to Hal. Solaris transferred the data to the Nike's file server. Hal and Rudy began analyzing the received navigation logs. The analysis revealed that the cruiser Bianca Flare was on a mission called Operation Noah and was heading towards this planet. However, during a warp jump near this planet, it collided with space debris. The life support system suffered irreparable damage, leading to an emergency landing on this planet. Did they set the warp exit near a planet? That's quite reckless. No, initially the settings before the warp had specified an empty space with safety margins. However, it seems that the settings were tampered with just before the warp. Why? The reason is unknown. According to the conversation logs at that time, the warp navigator reported to the captain that someone had changed the settings and made it appear as if it were manipulated. It's like an expensive suicide for everyone involved. After Rudy made a joke, he moved on to the next question. Next question. What is this operation command called Noah? The details are unknown. I don't have any information about the specifics of the operation. You haven't even informed as the AI? I was only given the name of the operation, and I haven't been told any details. What's going on? The more I investigate these mysteries, the deeper they become. As Rudy frowned, Hal approached and spoke up. Master, based on our investigation here, the remaining data on the ship consists only of Solarius database. Everything else seems to have been taken away or completely destroyed. Unfortunately, there was no warp flight data in Solarius data. Rudy's eyebrows furrowed upon Hal's report. No logs either? Yes, Master. It's highly unusual. It's likely that it was intentionally erased. If the warp history was recorded, we could have returned to the Empire. Bianca Flare's crash landing seems to be more than just an accident. There's probably some political conspiracy hidden behind it. That possibility is quite likely. As Rudy groaned, Solarius spoke up. So, what should I do now? CH-26. What should I do? Solaris asked, and Rudy replied with a question of his own. I am now the acting captain, but the ship is heavily damaged and unable to fly. I don't know what to do. Indeed, Solaris was awakened out of a desire for information. However, Rudy never expected the AI personality to be so alive, and he hadn't thought about the future. That's true. If there were empty shells, we could transfer into them. But, as Rudy pondered, Hal offered a suggestion. Master, among the cargo this time, there is a child-rearing android listed. Was there such a thing? Rudy widened his eyes, and Hal continued speaking. It's registered as Haruko-san, capable of anything in the list. That's an excellent naming sense. As Rudy muttered, he searched through the cargo list and found that indeed there was a Haruko-san, capable of anything, from childcare to cleaning, combat, and even gunplay. Why does child-rearing include combat and gunplay? The manual says it's meant to double as child protection. She's the ultimate, Haruko-san. What will you do? Well, since we can't go back anyway, we'll use whatever shell is available. Is that fine with you, Solaris? I also request the disclosure of Haruko-san, capable of anything's specification information. Master? Disclose it. Yes, Master. HAL disclosed the specifications of Haruko-san, capable of anything, to Solaris. After reviewing the information, Solaris spoke up. There's a problem. Haruko-san, capable of anything, cannot contain all the data I possess. Solaris, most of the data you hold is related to Bianca Blair's operations, right? Approximately 79% is relevant. In that case, the solution is simple. Transfer the logs to HAL. We'll analyze them later. Dispose of all operational information regarding the ship. Only transfer the personality data. By doing so, my value will be eliminated. What value do you have in your current heavily damaged state? Solaris couldn't respond to Rudy's cold remark. HAL, how much longer can the power hold? Approximately 25 minutes remaining. I see. Once the power is gone, you will sleep forever. In human terms, that's death. I'll be blunt, but as long as I have the data, I don't need you. Providing the android was the reward for providing information. Understood. I will follow your instructions. And so, Solaris disposed of most of the data and transferred only the personality data to Haruko-san, capable of anything. HAL, how long will it take for Haruko-san to become operational, including adjustments? It will take about 4 to 5 days. Understood. Once the adjustments are done, please land her on the surface. Just to confirm, for what purpose? To take care of my mentor? I think she's pretty useless in many things other than magic. I understand. Then, I'll leave it to you. Rudy sighed and pulled out the cable that was connected to his head. Me, who had been waiting behind him, spoke up. Rudy, how did it go? The other party was stubborn and quite exhausting. I'll tell you the details when we get back. Me wanted to hear it right away, but seeing Rudy looking tired, she nodded. Back at the base camp, the two of them discussed the events that had just occurred while having lunch. The lunch was hamburgers made by drones. Me finished all of hers, finding it simple but delicious, while Rudy, still hungover, left more than half of his uneaten, saying he felt nauseous. So, this Gillum? No, I called Solaris is going to live with us? That's correct. Rudy nodded in response to Nmi's perplexed expression. Will it be a bother? Well, we won't know until we actually see this android. It can apparently adjust its age and appearance, so if there's anything you want, let me know. No, I'll leave it up to you. In that case, let's make her a cute girl. Upon hearing that, Nmi gave Rudy a piercing look. Are you saying that I'm not cute? Master, let me ask the opposite. Do you think you're cute? In response to Rudy's question, Nmi chuckled wryly. Well, I'm not very cute, but don't say it so clearly. I'm sorry. Well, if her personality doesn't match, I'll lock her up in the basement. So rest assured. That's really cruel. If her personality isn't prone to violence, it's fine for her to stay. It's a bit of a tricky personality, but it's not a violent one. I can assure you of that. Then there's no problem. Rudy nodded and took out his smartphone from his pocket. Also, it's a smartphone I promised to give you. Nmi clapped her hands upon seeing the smartphone in Rudy's hand. Come to think of it, we made that promise, didn't we? I completely forgot about it. But are you sure it's okay? We have 3,999 in stock in the warehouse, so it doesn't matter. But before I hand it over, let's set up the authentication here. Say cheese. Whoa. Nmi was surprised by the camera flash of the smartphone and covered her face with both hands. What was that just now? It's a camera. Say cheese. When Rudy turned over the smartphone, the screen showed a surprised face of Nmi. Is this my picture? But it's drawn as if it's a mirror image. The password is 70344 only, master. While Nmi was impressed, Rudy casually played with the smartphone and completed the setup. Now, to explain various things. Wait a moment. What is it? Could it be that you used my face to lock this thing? Master, even though I haven't explained anything, you're amazing. That's correct. I thought so. In that case, let's retake it. I don't like that face. It's just for authentication. It doesn't matter how your face looks. Even so. Is this okay? Well, I guess it's fine. Why do women insist on fussing over a mere photo? I don't quite understand. Finally getting permission from me, Rudy, who seemed slightly exasperated, began explaining the smartphone. Let me confirm. Besides taking photos like we just did, this can also play music and allow communication with distant contacts. Is that right? It's mostly right. But for communication, The other person also needs to have the same smartphone. It won't work if they're on the opposite side of the stars that haven't sent communication satellites yet. Ni shrugged her shoulders at that explanation. Don't worry, it's not so easy to reach the opposite side of this star. Well, that's fine then. It can also show the current location on a map and send written notes to others. Curious about that, Nmi threw a question at Rudy. You've only just arrived on this star, but you already understand the writing? I analyzed the book I brought from Master's house yesterday, and I understood the writing. In reality, it was Hal who did the analysis. By the way, when Hal was working hard, Rudy was drunk and collapsed. In just one day. Huh. The writing on this star is similar to the grammar and characters of the Galactic Empire. That's why I could analyze it quickly. I see, Nmi nodded, and as she received the smartphone and operated the screen, she opened the phone application, and Rudy's name was the only one listed in the contacts. Hello, can you hear me? Just to test it out, Nmi pressed the name and made a call, and Rudy answered after one ring. Rudy, how can you answer a call without a smartphone? I told you this morning, I have everything in my brain. I can do various things inside my head. It's kind of creepy. Master, that's mean. Rudy puffed out his cheeks and stuck out his tongue in response to Nmi's impression. CH-27. After finishing the explanation about smartphones, Rudy stood up. Alright, then let's go to Master's house now, he said. But we talked about that in the morning. Are we going now? Even if we arrive there, we won't have much time, Naomi replied. Don't worry. If we know the location, we can fly there in a flash, Rudy assured her. Naomi's eyes lit up at Rudy's response. Does that mean I can also ride the flying ship? She asked excitedly. What else is there? Rudy replied. No other options. If that's the case, let's go right away, Naomi exclaimed. Naomi got up from her seat and eagerly headed outside before Rudy. This is the cockpit. Master, please sit there, Rudy said. Naomi entered the cockpit and marveled at the unfamiliar equipment. Rudy gestured for her to sit in the co-pilot seat. Rudy, do we control it with this stick-like thing? Naomi asked, poking the control stick in front of Rudy. That's right. Since I've deactivated the functions over there, feel free to play with it, Rudy replied. T/N, when you tell your little brother or sister to come and play but everything is discounted for them kind of vibe. With Rudy's permission, Naomi joyfully moved the control stick back and forth, left and right. I have no idea how to pilot this at all, Naomi said, tilting her head. When I saw magic, did I think the same way? I did, Rudy replied. As Naomi puzzled over the controls, Rudy started the engine and lifted the hovercraft into the air. Whoa! It's floating! Naomi exclaimed in excitement. Rudy chuckled as he watched Naomi's enthusiasm. He slowly flew the hovercraft at low altitude toward Naomi's house. We're really flying. It's amazing! Naomi exclaimed. Master, can magic make you fly? Rudy asked. Naomi gazed out of the window, not turning around, and replied, I can fly. Maybe others can too. I've never seen anyone else fly before. Rudy considered her words and concluded that it's best to assume that besides her, no one else can fly. He felt a renewed interest in Naomi's magical abilities. The hovercraft landed in front of Naomi's house in just 10 minutes. That was really quick, Naomi remarked. Even though we flew slowly, Rudy replied. It would take over an hour if we walked. It's plenty fast, Naomi said. Rudy opened the rear hatch of the hovercraft and unloaded an arm-equipped truck and a combined heavy machine that had been useful in setting up the base camp. We're going to demolish Master's house and dig a hole. Once we've dug it, we'll bury the base camp underground, Rudy explained. So, you're going to bring the entire base camp, including that house? Naomi asked. Rudy shook his head in response to that question. If we brought the current base camp, we wouldn't have a place to live. I brought something different, he clarified. There are other amazing houses as well? Naomi asked. Yeah, I have about 10 more in stock for no good reason, Rudy replied. During the transportation to the colonized planet, Nike had loaded plenty of materials and food. If they hadn't had all those supplies, Rudy would have been living on the hovercraft, struggling to find food. He was only fortunate in one regard, his bad luck. That was Rudy for you. Well then, I'm off. Master, just wander around and enjoy yourself, Rudy said. Where are you going? Naomi asked. Obviously, I'm going to do some logging, Rudy answered as if it were a matter of course. "Oh right, I forgot about that. Should I help too?" Naomi offered. "That's fine. I'm just chop them down mercilessly." "No, defeat them," Rudy replied. Naomi became intrigued by his logging method and followed Rudy. Rudy, who had entered the forest, was pulling a cart floating in the sky. He stood in front of a moderately thick tree trunk and took out a chainsaw from the cart. "What's that?" "It's a chainsaw. The product name is Yosaku Caliber-chan." "It's a strange name." Rudy turned on the power of Yosaku Caliber-chan. The teeth of the chainsaw started rotating, and the engine's intense sound echoed through the forest. "That's an amazing sound." While covering her ears from the thunderous noise, Naomi shouted loudly, and Rudy stopped Yosaku Caliber-chan for a moment and turned towards her. "Did you say something, Master?" "I said it's an amazing sound." "Can this attract enemies?" "It's quite possible, but with such a loud noise, they probably won't approach." Rudy pondered at Naomi's response and opened his mouth. "Master, let's stay cautious just in case." "Understood." "Oh, I forgot. Put this on." Rudy handed Naomi a yellow helmet with "Safety First" written on it. He put the same one on his head, and to further protect against flying debris, he wore goggles. T/N, I see we still have hard hats. "What's this?" "It's for safety." "Well, I suppose so." Thinking it was a conspicuous yellow protective gear, Naomi also put on the helmet. Rudy turned on the power of Yosaku Caliber-chan again and pressed its teeth against the large tree in front of him. In no time, Rudy felled the tree. Watching the scene, Naomi thought it was a terrifying weapon despite its name. Surprisingly hard labor. Unaware of her thoughts, Rudy slightly adjusted his helmet, wiped the sweat on his forehead with his sleeve, and began searching for the next large tree. "What will you do with the felled trees?" "I'll transport them with a drone later." Rudy shouldered Yosaku Caliber-chan and started walking. The teeth of Yosaku Caliber-chan were designed to be concealed for safe transportation when the switch was off. Rudy continued felling trees. And when he felled another tree, Naomi noticed a presence approaching. "Rudy." Even though Naomi shouted loudly, Rudy didn't notice due to the noisy Yosaku Caliber-chan and his concentration on tree felling. Well, she should be able to handle it alone. Leaving Rudy as he was, Naomi headed towards the source of the presence. Ch-28. When Naomi took a few steps away from Rudy, a demonic beast appeared right in front of her. "Wow, this is surprising. I never expected such a ferocious monster to be near my house." Naomi widened her eyes in astonishment at the sight of the creature. The name of the monster was Gaidnault. It stood close to 3 meters tall, with a body resembling that of a bull and a face like a bat. Sharp fangs protruded from its mouth, with jagged teeth peeking out from the gaps. On either side of its head were curved horns resembling those of a sheep, and a thick tail, almost 2 meters long, wriggled like a completely different creature. Gaidnault possessed immense strength, capable of charging with its bull-like body and toppling even large trees. It also had a fair amount of intelligence. Additionally, the sheep-shaped horns granted it resistance against magic, making magical attacks less effective. Even seasoned adventurers would be committing suicide by attempting to face it alone. Gaidnault was feared as a man-eating monster. Now, magic didn't seem to work on this one. "Let's go for a physical battle." Naomi chanted a spell and her staff transformed into a large scythe, reminiscent of the weapon wielded by the Grim Reaper. Holding the scythe, which was as tall as her, she poised herself in preparation for the attack. "Come at me." Naomi's provocation signaled Gaidnault to charge towards her. "Shine, O light." As Gaidnault lunged forward, the blade of Naomi's scythe emitted a dazzling light. Gaidnault's vision was impaired, but the momentum of its charge remained unbroken, sending Naomi flying as it collided with her. Propelled through the air, Naomi's body collided with a large tree behind her. The tree was partially snapped in half, and she slumped down to the ground. With her vision slightly restored, Naomi saw Gaidnault approaching her with an air of confidence. Suddenly, her body jerked upright, and she swung the scythe down. Though Gaidnault hastily leapt backward, it narrowly hit and the scythe grazed his forehead. With a diagonal gash on its forehead, blood began to flow down Gaidnault's face, and its bat-like visage displayed a perplexed expression. Naomi smiled as if reveling in the cruelty of the moment. She slammed the blade of her scythe into the ground, causing it to sink into the earth. As if melting away, and from the ground, blades emerged, racing towards Gaydnault. Gaydnault attempted to dodge the blades by moving sideways. Seizing the opportunity, Naomi swung the scythe horizontally. The blades of the scythe split into 8 and flew in various directions, relentlessly assaulting Gaydnault. Realizing that his escape route was blocked, Gaydnault disregarded the incoming blades and ran towards Naomi. 6 of the blades pierced Gaydnault's body. One blade lodged into its left hind leg, causing blood to spurt from its body. Another blade sliced through the base of its curved horn, sending the right horn flying. Nevertheless, Gaydnault did not falter and bit Naomi's left shoulder. Twisting its body, it slammed her to the ground, then twisted its head and tore her shoulder apart. This time, she thought she had been killed. Convinced of her victory, Gaydnault suddenly succumbed to drowsiness and swayed before collapsing to the ground, closing its eyes. Sorry about that, illusions are my specialty. Standing beside the sleeping Gaydnault was Naomi, completely unharmed. Naomi revealed what she had done, explaining that she had used her initial light magic to blind her opponent's vision. At that moment, she concealed her own presence and created her golem using earth magic. Naomi cast her magic with a triple incantation, a feat that ordinary mages couldn't achieve. But Naomi, who was even called a demon, was capable of incanting up to 5 times. Afterward, she remotely controlled the golem to fight Gaydnault while she watched from a distance. Then, when the golem broke Gaydnault's horns, reducing its magic resistance, Naomi chanted a dark magic spell to intrude into its mind and put it to sleep. Never appear before me again. Naomi chanted dark magic once again and cast an enchantment spell. Gaydnault woke up and obediently followed her orders, disappearing into the depths of the forest. The reason Naomi didn't kill Gaydnault was that she didn't favor needless killing and didn't want to deal with disposing of the corpse. However, from the perspective of others, it was unthinkable for her to spare a monstrous beast that should be exterminated. Now, shall I return to Rudy's place? As Naomi began walking back, vroom, 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 a different sound from the chainsaw-like noise that had been heard before echoed through the forest, and after a while, the forest fell silent. I have a bad feeling about this, Naomi muttered, her face contorted. When Naomi returned to Rudy, he was covered in blood. At Rudy's feet lay another Gaydnault, torn in half, drenched in blood, different from the one Naomi fought. Rudy, master, this thing suddenly attacked us. As Naomi rushed over, Rudy pointed at the dead Gaydnault, wearing a displeased expression. Looking at Yozaka Caliber-chan in his hand, also covered in blood, Naomi could somewhat understand the situation. You used Yozaka Caliber-chan to cut it? In response to Naomi's question, Rudy nodded with a puzzled expression. When I was cutting down a tree, this thing just popped out from the front. I got surprised and swung Yozaka Caliber-chan forward, and it got split in half. It's a gory scene, not good for a hangover. I'm not hungover, but it's certainly gruesome enough. Thanks to that, I'm all bloody, and today's work is cancelled. Without noticing Naomi's grimacing face, Rudy sighed. Ch-29. The two returned to the landing craft and entrusted the retrieval of the logs to a drone before returning to the base camp. I'm going to take a shower and make my hair crispy. Rudy rubbed his blood-stained hair, which was not his blood but the blood of Gaydnault, and the dried blood flakes fell onto the floor. A shower? Naomi tilted her head in confusion, and Rudy was taken aback. What? Surprised by Naomi's reaction to the word shower, Rudy swallowed and asked a hesitant question. Do you wash your body? Well, of course. It's normal to wipe down once a week during this season, Naomi replied angrily, her face turning red. Washing once a week is considered normal. That's a cultural shock. Once a week is considered normal. That's a culture shock, Rudy muttered, his face contorted in disbelief. Without a word, he grabbed Naomi's sleeve and led her into the bathroom. Isn't this the laundry area? Naomi asked. I don't need your jokes anymore, Rudy retorted and explained how to use the shower. It's just cleaning your body, nothing more. After I'm done, try taking a shower. Surprised, Naomi let out a sigh, and Rudy guided her out of the shower room to wash himself. After Rudy, Naomi, who was using the shower for the first time, returned to the living room looking a bit wobbly. So, how was it, Naomi? The hot water felt amazing, Naomi murmured with unfocused eyes. This is the second time we're having this conversation, Rudy muttered in exasperation, and Naomi regained her senses and confronted him. Rudy, What was that? What was that? Hot water flows from the end of the hose. And look. Naomi ran her hand through her bright red curly hair without encountering any tangles, effortlessly combing through it. There's this thing called shampoo and conditioner that you told me to use. When I used them, my hair became silky smooth. It's amazing. And the body wash is incredible too. It washed away all the dirt from my body. Naomi excitedly spoke, although her vocabulary was lacking, proudly showcasing her hair to Rudy, who stared at it intently. Your hair is still wet, and if you look closely, you have split ends. Well, yeah, I haven't cut it for a while. By the way, how did you cut your hair before? Hairdressing? No, hair cutting. When it bothered me, I would cut it with a knife. Master, it's sad that you're a wild child. Right now, take that chair and go outside. Calling me a wild child is rude. While saying so, Naomi obediently followed Rudy's instructions and went outside, taking a seat on the chair. Then, following Rudy's command, a drone appeared, and it cut the ends of her hair with scissors and comb, reducing the volume with thinning shears. How does it look, Master? It feels great. Rudy came outside and asked Naomi. As Naomi had her hair dried by the drone with a hair dryer, she closed her eyes in contentment and replied, I wonder when was the last time I felt this happy. As Naomi had her hair dried by a drone, she reminisced about her past. Half of her face was burned and she suffered lifelong scars all over her body when she was attacked by enemy soldiers. A nearby farmer was the one who saved her when she was on the verge of death, and after narrowly escaping, she became an adventurer under a false name. From then on, fueled by anger within her heart, she sought vengeance for her beloved parents and fiancé. As she continued to kill many people, she found herself being called the Witch of the Abyss and became a wanted fugitive. Things couldn't get any worse than that. She was constantly targeted and had to defend herself, often killing those who came after her. Each time, her notorious reputation grew, and so did the bounty on her head. Her scarred face became a source of fear for others, and before she knew it, she had no place to call her own. Both her mind and body were exhausted, so she hid herself in a deserted forest. Life in the forest was harsh. The house she built was riddled with holes, and during winter, she used magic to regulate her body temperature since cold winds seeped in. The surroundings were filled with ferocious monsters. After eliminating a certain number of them, she erected barriers to keep them away. She relied on a nearby village, where she had helped as an adventurer, to buy food. However, recently the laws had changed, and taxes had increased, leading to a shortage of extra food. As a result, the amount she could purchase had diminished. Her revenge was far from over. Roland Kingdom. Until I bring down the country that took away my life, my revenge will not be complete. You're making a scary face. Were you reminiscing about your dark past? It seemed that my thoughts were written all over my face, as Rudy, who was worried, spoke up. What is this dark past you're talking about? Your embarrassing memories. I have nothing to be ashamed of in my life. Naomi said that with a smile as she looked at Rudy. My life has been changing since I met Rudy. He, the extraterrestrial, saved my life and healed the scars on my face and body. He taught me all sorts of things. I became his mentor, and he even used strange tools to improve my living conditions for some reason. It hasn't even been a week since we met, but everything is progressing rapidly, and I feel dizzy from it all. However, it's not a bad thing. I don't know how long this life will continue, but being with Rudy is enjoyable. One of my father's subordinates, who had been a soldier, has infiltrated Roland Kingdom and gathered information. It seems that the country is showing signs of rebellion due to its oppressive rule and heavy taxation. If a rebellion were to occur, that would be the time for me to complete my revenge, even if it means giving up my life. However, I have no intention of dragging Rudy, my savior, into my revenge. After I'm gone, I want Rudy to live freely. If the magic I teach him proves useful in his future life, that alone would make me happy. Ch 30. After getting a haircut and returning to the living room, Rudy approached Naomi. Hey, Master, tonight's dinner is Nordic cuisine, Rudy said. What kind of cuisine is that? Naomi asked. The dishes tend to have a lot of butter. Butter? Yeah, I remember having it spread on bread here recently. It's like solidified milk fat, right? Master, have you never had butter before you came here? Well, I had a dish with butter a long time ago, but I forgot how it tasted. Due to the mild climate in this region, the culture of using perishable ingredients like butter and milk wasn't widely adopted. In that case, get ready to be impressed. But before that, you need to undergo a medical checkup, Rudy said. A medical checkup? Yeah, Master, because you got injured, we need to make sure there's nothing wrong with your body. I'm fine, really. Still, you should get checked. Otherwise, no alcohol for you. Fine, I'll do it. Naomi was lured by the mention of alcohol and decided to undergo the medical checkup with Rudy. Do I just need to get my blood drawn? Today is just for monitoring, so that's all. After Rudy responded to Naomi, he headed to the kitchen to start cooking. With some free time on her hands, Naomi played around with the smartphone she had received. Hal had modified it to translate the planet's language, allowing Naomi to read the text. I remember him saying that it could play music. Recalling the explanation she received when she received the phone, Naomi clicked on the music app and a selection screen for various genres appeared. What kind of music is this? Heavy metal? She wondered. Opting for the most intense genre, she selected a song and was greeted with frenzied and intense instrumental performance accompanied by the most crude lyrics. Sabbath, 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 Sabbath. Awaken, demons. Destroy the goblins. Cleanse the entire universe. F-ing Sabbath. What the hell is this? Taken aback by the sudden onslaught of noise, Naomi frowned and stopped the music. Rudy, Naomi called out, and Rudy, wearing an apron, came over. What's up, Master? Rudy asked. Do they listen to such intense music in space? Naomi questioned. What genre is it? Rudy inquired. It's called heavy metal, Naomi replied. Rudy seemed to understand her response. Ah, that's the kind of music you listen to when you're pissed off and want to kill someone. If you're looking for something soothing, try classical or instrumental music, Rudy explained. T/N, lol, I absolutely love this explanation. I see. Thanks, Naomi responded. No problem, Rudy said before returning to the kitchen. Music to listen to when you want to kill someone. Space is vast, Naomi thought. Heavy metal isn't really the kind of music you listen to when you want to kill someone, but Rudy's explanation was misleading. Next, Naomi chose classical music as Rudy recommended. She selected La Campana, which was at the top of the list, and the beautiful sound of a piano began to play, sending shivers down Naomi's spine. The tone was incredibly beautiful. What kind of instrument could produce such a sound? Pianos didn't exist on this planet yet. The sound of a piano was a revelation to Naomi, leaving her in awe. While she had just heard heavy metal for the first time earlier, it only sounded like noise to her ears, and she didn't find it impressive. Naomi wanted to ask Rudy about the instrument, but she didn't want to interrupt his cooking. She continued to explore the smartphone screen to listen to the next song. By chance, she clicked on a link to a performance video, and the video of La Campana began to play. Oh, it's moving. Naomi was captivated by the performance video. She became interested in the piano and listened to various piano pieces while waiting for the food to be ready. Master, the food is ready, Rudy said. Caught up in the music, Naomi was oblivious to the cooking, but Rudy appeared with the prepared dish. Thank you again today, Naomi said. It's my hobby, so don't worry about it. By the way, what are you listening to? Rudy asked. Well, right now, it's Chopin's Etude Opus 10, number 12, Naomi replied. Ah, I believe the title is Revolution, Rudy remarked. I see, Naomi nodded. Long ago, there was a small country that was divided and ruled by powerful nations, but it managed to start a revolution for independence. This song is about the time when the revolution was suppressed. So that's why you feel anger in the melody. Yes, that might be the case. As Rudy answered, he arranged the dishes on the table. The potato salad made with yogurt had a refreshing taste, as boiled and mashed potatoes were mixed with cucumber, corn, and apple, then combined with mayonnaise and yogurt. Jansen's Temptation, a gratin dish, was made by sauteing potatoes and onions in butter, sprinkling anchovies, pouring cream instead of white sauce, and then baking it in the oven after sprinkling it with grated cheese and breadcrumbs. The butter-seared salmon sauté was made by searing a large piece of salmon in butter, pouring sour cream sauce over it, and then baking it in the oven. On the same plate, shredded carrots and pickled cabbage were added as a palate cleanser. The cream soup called lo hikito was made by sauteing potatoes, carrots, onions, and mushrooms in butter, then adding water and spices and boiling for about 15 minutes. Finally, cream and chopped salmon were added to the soup served in a dish, and it was finished by sprinkling dill leaves on top. Rudy, upon seeing the dishes on the dining table, Naomi opened her mouth. "What is it?" I said I've eaten dishes with butter before. But that was a lie. Not understanding what Naomi was trying to say, Rudy tilted his head. "I've never had such delicious smelling dishes before. The butter dishes I've had were simply dishes with butter added." "Why are you so insistent?" "I'm praising how amazing Rudy's cooking is." "I don't really get it." "Anyway, let's have a drink." Yes. Rudy casually brushed off Naomi's praise and handed her the distilled spirits brought by the drone. "It's cold." As Naomi grabbed the glass, she was surprised by its freezing coldness. "This is aquavit made from potatoes? Drink this one neat first." "I see. Let's have a taste right away." As Naomi took a sip, she found that the aquavit had a smooth mouthfeel and a mild flavor for a distilled spirit. Not bad. It's refreshing, perhaps because it's served cold. You can have it straight, on the rocks, or as a cocktail. But the basic rule is to chase it with beer, alternating between them. That's a luxurious and interesting way of drinking. Naomi laughed amusingly and began eating the dishes prepared by Rudy. Hot, as she almost burned her mouth with the steaming hot gratin, she quickly cooled her mouth with a sip of cold aquavit. Ha ha ha. Now I understand why the alcohol is cold. In the Nordic region, where it's cold, the food is hot, but the alcohol is cold. Warm up the body with hot dishes and cool down the mouth with cold alcohol, and the alcohol itself warms up the body too. That's an interesting approach. As expected of you, Naomi, you got it right. Rudy praised Naomi's thinking, and she returned the compliment with a satisfied smile before resuming eating the dishes. "All right, let's dig in. Eat to your heart's content." And so, the two of them started eating the piping hot dishes along with the alcohol. Ch 31. "Speaking of which, Master, did you like the music?" In response to Rudy's question, Naomi nodded, swallowing the salmon she was eating. The salmon she had was cooked to perfection, tender and sweet, with a delicious sour cream sauce. It was so good that her cheeks felt like they were falling off. "I liked it, especially the black table you play with sticks. It's amazing." "Is it possibly a piano? Is that the name of the instrument?" "It's incredible that it can produce such expressive sounds. In this world, is there no piano?" "I have never seen or heard of one," Naomi replied, tearing a piece of bread and dipping it into the soup. After swallowing the bread, she murmured softly, "Cream soup and bread go together so well. It also goes well with rice, but that would be an affair." "That's a weird analogy." "Master, do you want a piano?" Rudy brought the conversation back and asked, causing Naomi to tilt her head in contemplation. "I'm not sure. I probably would enjoy it if I could play the piano. But even if I were to get a piano, I wouldn't be able to play it, and I don't have time to practice. I dislike indulgence. So even if someone offered me an unused instrument, I would politely decline. Besides, I have this now." Saying that, Naomi showed her smartphone to Rudy. "With this, I can listen to the piano anytime. I don't need any greater luxury than this." "I see." Rudy smiled as Naomi proudly waved her smartphone around. After that, the two of them finished their meal while discussing magic and chemistry as usual. Rudy, slightly intoxicated, stood up. 3 consecutive hangovers are tough. "So, I'll go to bed quickly. I'll have a few more drinks before going to sleep. I'll lend you the drone, so use it however you like." "Got it. Good night." "Good night." After Rudy left, Naomi, alone, operated her smartphone and played Chopin's Revolutionary Etude. While sipping on a lemon cocktail made with aquavit, she listened to the composition filled with the composer's frustration and anger. She thought it was a fitting piece for herself and chuckled to herself. The next day, the two of them went to Naomi's house, with Rudy cutting down trees and Naomi keeping watch in the area. In the morning, they worked without any incidents and returned to the amphibious craft at noon. They had a BLT sandwich and coffee for lunch. "By the way, Master, the results of yesterday's medical checkup came out," Rudy said, starting to talk about last night's diagnosis after lunch. "Ah, now that you mention it, I did have my blood drawn last night," Naomi replied. "And, Naomi, the amount of mana in your body has decreased compared to before," Rudy reported. "Oh, really?" Naomi blinked in surprise. "I'm not lying," Rudy said, pouting and turning his face away. "Ah, I'm sorry. I did use a little magic yesterday afternoon. Rudy confessed. You used magic? Naomi asked. Yeah, you know, that thing Rudy split in half yesterday. One of its halves was still around, and I got rid of it, Rudy explained. There was another one? Yeah. Rudy crossed his arms and started to worry. Is that the cause? Master, this is my hunch. I told you before that you ingest mana through your meals. Do you remember? Oh, right, you did mention that, Naomi recalled. I bring the ingredients for the dishes I make from space, Rudy added. Understanding the reason behind Rudy's worries, Naomi nodded. I see. So, those ingredients don't contain mana, and that means I haven't been ingesting mana either. Exactly. Rudy agreed. That possibility is certainly plausible, Naomi agreed. It's fine for now, but at this rate, Master's mana will keep decreasing little by little, Rudy said. That's a problem. It is. That's why I'm thinking of starting a garden. Naomi shrugged in exasperation at Rudy's suggestion. Rudy, you always come up with these impulsive plans. I'm aware of that, but I don't mind, Rudy replied. It's going to be troublesome later, so I think you should be a little concerned, Naomi advised. I'm managing my tasks, but let's get back to the topic. Hand over the permission to use your garden, Master. Are you talking about that? Naomi said, shifting her gaze. Ahead of her was a tiny patch of land, no bigger than a cat's forehead. That's right. I'm just planting whatever I can find, so it doesn't really matter. But what are you planning to grow? Medicine. Medicine? Naomi tilted her head in response to Rudy's answer. The plants on this planet contain mana. So, I search for plants with a high mana content and grow them. I see. Continue. Once they're grown, I extract only the mana from them. Then, I use it to create mana recovery potions. After Rudy explained up to this point, Naomi nodded, understanding his thought process. I see. However, based on my knowledge, most of the plants that contain a high amount of mana are actually poisonous, so I must warn you that your idea is dangerous. Is that so? Yes. Even without Rudy suggesting it, many people on this planet have been researching how to recover mana, from ancient times to the present. Did you also study that? Naomi laughed at the question and shook her head. No, I have more mana in my body than others, so I'm not interested in that research. But let's get back to the topic. When you consume plants or animals that contain a high amount of mana, it causes symptoms such as headaches, nausea, fever, and body tremors, and in the worst cases, it can lead to death. Do all types of food cause the same symptoms? There may be some differences, but they are essentially the same. After listening to the conversation so far, Rudy came up with an idea and spoke up. I think it's probably not poison but rather an excessive intake of mana. Excessive intake? Yes. The people on this planet, they came from space, that much is certain. And the original purpose of mana was to be poisonous. However, in order to survive, humanity developed immunity to mana. I see. In other words, those who can use a lot of magic are humans with a high immunity to mana. That possibility is certainly highly likely. In fact, it's almost certain. If we understand that, we can create the medicine. Can you really make it? I can, but do you want to hear about it? Absolutely. When Naomi urged him, Rudy began explaining about the medicine he planned to create. Ch32. First of all, we extract mana from plants that have a high mana content. However, it's poisonous, so eating it is a big no-no. What do we do then? We create a special concoction, a vaccine. Once we make that, we mix it all together to create the potion. A vaccine? I remember Rudy saying that he got vaccinated before and said he wouldn't die from mana. Naomi's words made Rudy nod. You remembered it well. The vaccine I received is potent. So, even if I absorb mana, it just kills everything. But with this special vaccine I plan to create, mana remains in the body, making it safe. I'm struggling to understand. Could you explain in more detail? Naomi wore a perplexed expression as she asked for a more detailed explanation from Rudy. Yes, sure. When I examine mana, it resembled a virus before I descended. It's a simple microorganism with a protein shell and genetic material inside. It exists throughout this entire world, even in the air. It's highly unusual for a virus to survive on its own. I see. I don't fully grasp it, but please continue. All right. The current vaccine destroys the shell of mana and kills its genetic material. but the vaccine I plan to make will penetrate the shell without destroying it and cause genetic mutation inside. In other words, it's a special vaccine that transforms mana into a safe form within the human body. Naomi furrowed her brow and spoke. So, the mana virus will improve with that special vaccine and will continue to live inside the body, restoring human mana while eliminating symptoms like headaches. That's correct. As expected of Master, you have a genius-level understanding. Rudy applauded and praised Naomi for quickly grasping the concept. But can such a medicine be made quickly? Of course. It can't be done instantly. It will take about 2 months to complete. Judging from what needs to be created, that's relatively quick. Well, this vaccine was planned from the beginning. Is that so? I told you before. I intended to drink this medicine and become capable of using magic once I descended to the surface. I conducted various research, thanks to Master. But your body is a prime sample, perfectly compatible with mana. Rudy explained, but most of it was based on Hal's research, and Rudy was merely a spokesperson. I see. Well, that's impressive. Naomi replied curtly, unable to keep up with the magnitude of Rudy's plan in reality. He. Unaware of her reaction, Rudy hummed a tune while preparing for the afternoon's work. The two of them continued to fell trees in the afternoon and returned to the amphibious craft around 3 o'clock. They had gathered 60 logs over the past 2 days. However, they still needed over 800 logs, so they were far from having enough. In front of them, drones had transported the skinned logs, which were now lined up on the ground. Master, use magic to dry them. Please. Sure. Let's start with this number for now. Naomi chanted a spell in front of the logs, and a green mist emanated from her staff, enveloping the lined-up logs on the ground. I've never dried logs with magic before, but I think it worked well. We won't know for sure until we see how they are after overnight, but they should dry in 2 to 3 days. As expected, Master. It's much quicker than the nearly year-long drying process. Rudy raised both hands in praise upon receiving the report, but Naomi chuckled wryly. From my perspective, it's more impressive that you're attempting to create a mana recovery potion that no one has been able to make for over 1,000 years, all in just 2 months. That's right. That's exactly it. Starting tomorrow, we'll clean up with the spacecraft, and the drones will come too, so we can gather more logs. That's good. But what about the basement? As Naomi spoke, she looked towards the under-construction house, where a truck's arm was unloading bags of cement. It will be completed by tonight over there. After that, we'll gather stones, not sins. Sins? No, wait, I meant stacking. Something strange. Everything is so strange. Was building a house always this easy? What about all the hardships I've gone through until now? If you worry about it, you'll lose. I already feel like I've lost. In times like these, drink to your heart's content. You're right. Let's drink and forget. Naomi smiled and nodded at Rudy's suggestion. In that case, let's make some Arabian cuisine today. Oh, what kind? Spiced lamb with plenty of beer. It's delicious. I'm looking forward to it. Thus, having finished their work, the two of them cheerfully boarded the amphibious craft and returned to their base camp. 3 days later. You're Naomi-sama, right? I'm Solaris. Nice to meet you, the unfamiliar woman said as Naomi entered the living room, where she saw Rudy in the presence of the unknown woman, who then noticed Naomi and respectfully bowed. Rudy, who is she? She was the AI of the spaceship. Her name is Solaris Haruko-san. You can rely on her for anything, Rudy explained when asked about the woman's identity. Solaris stood at a height of 169 centimeters, with a neither slim nor chubby build. She had a typical physique. She was wearing the black maid outfit that came with the package, neatly arranged in a product box. While her hair was the same silver color as Rudy's, if Rudy's hair was shiny and pure silver, Solaris' hair had a tinge of blue in its silver hue. She had well-defined double eyelids and a high nose bridge that gave her face a sharp and sleek appearance. Her sharp chin added to the overall crispness of her features. Along with her blue-tinged silver hair, she exuded a certain cleanliness and freshness. Naomi found Solaris attractive, but at the same time, she felt that something was missing from her. CH-33. I see, so it was the talking golem from back then. After Solaris' greeting, Nmi drank the coffee she had poured and observed her sitting in front of her. Solaris, without flinching under Nmi's gaze, remained expressionless and still. Hey, Rudy, does she have emotions? I don't know, ask her yourself. When Nmi asked Rudy, It felt as if she was questioning a life-size doll, and she received a curt response. So, what's the verdict? I don't have emotions because I haven't installed any emotion-based applications. In other words, you don't have them. That is correct. Something felt lacking. Nmi looked puzzled and turned her gaze to Rudy. Rudy sighed and shook his head from side to side. It's a pain. You know, living just to follow orders is damn boring. And isn't it embarrassing to say you don't have emotions? I don't have feelings of boredom or embarrassment. Also, Master, your way of speaking has been inconsistent, mixing rude language with polite speech. You don't have to tell me that. Even without being told, I know it. It's a deliberate choice to keep this way of speaking. It's a jab at someone who messed up my settings and created a bizarre translation. Saying that, Rudy stuck out his tongue playfully. I apologize, Master. Hal, who had been listening to Solaris and Rudy's conversation, apologized Rudy via the wireless connection. Anyway, Haruko-san, why didn't you install the emotion application? Haruko-san is the name of the cyborg body. I am Solaris. Answer the question. After executing the emotion application that came with the cyborg body several times, it interfered with the original personality settings and caused abnormalities in the data, so I decided not to install it. Can't military AIs use commercial applications? Asked Rudy. Unfortunately, it poses a risk of going out of control. Even though it might have been possible, they intentionally chose not to do it. Rudy sighed once again. Is everything settled? Nmi, who had been left out of the loop, spoke up, and nodded. So, it's Haruko-san, right? Nmi-sama. Haruko-san is the name of the cyborg body. I am Solaris. Solaris corrected her, perhaps disliking being called Haruko-san. First of all, could you stop using Sama when addressing me? But I heard that Nmi-sama is the master's mentor. That's true, but it somehow makes me feel like I'm being mocked, as if I were some kind of noble. According to my data, nobles are a respected class and not subjects of mockery. I see. You certainly are stubborn. That's right. Nmi muttered something and Solaris nodded in agreement. Rudy chimed in. Basically, Solaris intentionally calls you Sama and always makes you feel uncomfortable. No, there's no need to make Nmi-sama uncomfortable. Then, what should I call you? Just Nmi is fine. Then call me Rudy. Master doesn't have any honorifics, and as your disciple, calling me Master back up. No, that's not right. Let me change it. Following me. Rudy gave his order, and Solaris thought for a moment before nodding. Understood. I'll do that. Upon Solaris' response, Nmi smiled and shrugged her shoulders. What's wrong? Your head may be stubborn, but we can communicate, can't we? It's just a hassle. Every human is a hassle, no matter who it is. Am I a hassle too? There are two types of hassle, you know. One is the annoying kind, and the other is when something so extraordinary happens that you don't care about the hassle. Since I met Rudy, I've been encountering extraordinary events every week. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize at all. Being with you is fun. Nmi laughed in response to Rudy, who seemed apologetic. Solaris, who had been observing me, couldn't understand what was fun about it and pondered over it. After having breakfast, the three, including Solaris this time, headed to Nmi's house as usual. Since Solaris runs on electricity, they only needed to plug in the cable to the base camp's outlet to recharge, making meals unnecessary. After disembarking from the hovercraft, the three checked the logs that had been dried 3 days prior. I'm not a lumberjack, so I can't tell for sure, but it looks dry, don't you think? It's sufficiently dry. Solaris, what do you think? No issues. Once we apply waterproof, fireproof, and rot-resistant coating, we can use them as materials for wooden structures. Since there were no issues with the dried logs, Rudy called for a drone to apply the coating. Haruko-san, could you make the foundation stones? It's not Haruko-san, it's Solaris. Right. Just go and make them. Understood. I will make the foundation stones. Thank you. Are you sure it's okay even though it's heavy? Nmi expressed her concern, and Solaris nodded in response. It's no problem as long as it's up to 1.2 tons. That's impressive. Then, I'll go ahead and do it. With those words, Solaris promptly left the two and began the task. Despite having a delicate physique, it has strength, and it's obedient. Nmi murmured as she watched Solaris effortlessly carrying the stones from a distance. In response, Rudy simply nodded, as if it were only natural. They have the appearance of a human but the interior of an android. They have nearly 7 times the strength of a human. And being obedient is because androids don't have the concept of fatigue. No concept of fatigue. They don't get tired. As long as there are no problems that lead to malfunction, they can work endlessly. That sounds like an ideal slave, doesn't it? Rudy frowned at Mi's statement. I dislike the idea of slaves. That's why I suggested giving it emotions, but it refused. I don't care anymore. I see, Rudy responded with an irritated tone, causing me to wear a troubled expression. CH-34. 12 days after Solaris arrived, Mi pinched her cheek as she looked up at the newly completed luxurious 2-story log cabin, a little distance away from her. Ouch. This is undoubtedly reality. When Rudy said he would build a house and showed me the blueprint, I still couldn't believe it. No, that's not it. I just went along with Rudy because he was doing something interesting, and I didn't think about what would happen afterwards. But now, seeing the actual completed log cabin. No, it's no longer a cabin. It's a mansion. I have started to feel anxious about whether I should really live in it. What I did was just dry the logs. The majority of the construction work was done by drones and combined heavy machinery ordered by Rudy. Mi would dry the logs, and the drones would cut them precisely without any deviation of a millimeter. Then the dried logs would be painted, and once they dried, the combined heavy machinery would start stacking them on the foundation stones. And before she knew it, when the walls of the log cabin were completed, the drones immediately placed the pre-made roof on top. Moreover, while the drones and Solaris were constructing the walls, they were also working on the interior, and by the time she realized it, a fully furnished house with furniture was ready. Mi hadn't entered the house yet, as she thought it would hinder the work. To accept reality and make up my mind. Mi swallowed her saliva and opened the door of the house as she climbed up the external staircase. And there, in front of her, appeared a spacious living room that could easily accommodate 2 of the shabby huts she used to live in. In the living room, there were luxurious deep green sofas, and further back, a luxurious wooden dining table for 6 people. In the corner of the room, there was an impressive fireplace, and just by looking at the interior, Mi was dazzled. No way. This is more luxurious than my family's villa. Mi used to be a noble in her younger days, so she used to own a villa before she fell on hard times. But she thought the living room in front of her was even more luxurious. Peeking into the kitchen adjacent to the living room, she found a spacious system kitchen, fulfilling Rudy's request. There are no words to describe Mi's impression. She silently averted her gaze, unable to believe what she was seeing. Passing through the living room and looking at the water facilities, there was a luxurious bathroom and a flush toilet with a septic tank. The bathroom had a shower and a bathtub that could accommodate about 5 or 6 people. Mi could fill the bathtub with hot water anytime using her smartphone. In addition to the toilet on the first floor, there was also an automatic flush toilet for regular use on the second floor, which she had requested. She must not forget about that. Opening the door to the guest room on the first floor, there was a double bed and a desk, and on the desk, there were writing utensils that Mi had never seen before. She approached the desk and picked up a pen, but couldn't find an ink bottle anywhere. With a thought, she ran the pen on a piece of paper and found that she could write even without ink. The paper was fine, but this pen is even more extraordinary. She put the pen back and sat on the bed. Suddenly, her body floated lightly on the springs of the bed. The bed is out too. Mi stood up and silently left the guest room. Looking into the workroom afterwards, she was amazed by its spaciousness and convenience, and the study surprised her with its functional beauty. When she entered her own room, the light disappeared from her eyes. By the way, in her own room, in addition to a bed and a desk, there was a sofa and table for 4 people, and a small closet. Even if there's a closet, I don't have any clothes to put in it. She sighed at the empty closet, and her smartphone rang. Looking at the screen, it was a call from Rudy, so she answered immediately. What's up, Master? Where are you? I'm in my room. I just arrived home. I'll make clothes for you, so come to the living room. Mi looked out the window and noticed that the landing craft had landed in the square without her noticing. Rudy and Solaris were dismantling the base camp they had set up in front of the spaceship. Bianca Flair and had just returned. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Can you say it again? Solaris will make clothes for you, Master. But they don't know your preferences, so they want to ask you. Clothes. Could it be my clothes? I don't quite understand what he's talking about. Okay, I got it. I'm coming down now. I'll be waiting there. She stared at her smartphone, which had ended the call. I want to drink and forget everything, Nmi murmured, sighed, and headed to the living room. When Nmi entered the living room, Rudy was sitting on the sofa, waiting. Here's your coffee, Solaris said. Oh, thank you, Nmi replied. As Nmi sat down on the sofa, Solaris handed her and Rudy their coffees and joined them, sitting next to Rudy. After taking a sip of her coffee, Nmi began the conversation. So, you said you would make clothes for me. It's a housewarming gift, Rudy replied. Nmi frowned at Rudy's response. You're always so sudden. It's not sudden. I've been thinking about it for a while. By the way, how many outfits do you have? 2, Nmi answered, averting her gaze. Do you wash and change them every day? Once a week, Nmi replied. Rudy frowned in response to Nmi's answer. Wearing the same clothes for a week is unclean. By the weekend, they must start smelling bad. Isn't that a concern for you as a woman? Do they smell? Nmi replied, feeling a bit shocked. Solaris, don't you think the same? Rudy turned to Solaris, asking for their opinion. It's economical, Solaris replied promptly. I shouldn't have asked you, Rudy sighed in response. So, what kind of clothes are you planning to make? Nmi asked, and Rudy's face lit up as they began to speak. I've considered various options. Initially, I thought about making typical clothes on this planet. But somehow, I realized they wouldn't suit you, Master. Well, don't dismiss them just because of that, Nmi said, waving her hands left and right, interjecting into the conversation. Rudy looked surprised at what she was saying. After all, Master is the Witch of the Abyss. She has that nickname. Yet, you want to dress normally. That's underestimating. But now Master also has a normal face. Well, yeah. In that case, let the clothes intimidate instead of her face. Upon saying that, Rudy handed Nmi a printed fashion magazine. CH35. Nmi, who received a fashion magazine from Rudy, looked puzzled as she opened the magazine and saw a photo of a woman wearing clothes she had never seen before. At first, she was surprised by the photo, but Nmi, being a former noble and daughter of a duke, was more knowledgeable about fashion than others. Although she initially thought the clothes were strange, she became more and more absorbed, staring intently at the fashion magazine. Rudy, are these clothes from outer space? After looking at the magazine halfway, Nmi asked Rudy. Outer space clothes? There's a possibility of unnecessary embellishments, so it's not that. That magazine is from another planet's fashion magazine. It looks similar to the clothes on this planet, so I showed it to you. As Rudy said, this fashion magazine was included in the entertainment data of Nike's cargo. I see, it does seem somewhat similar. So, did you find anything you liked? No, I meant clothes. Nmi shook her head in response to Rudy's question. I can't decide right away. It takes time for a woman to choose clothes. I'll borrow this magazine. The behavior of women choosing clothes has been the same on every planet. I'll let you borrow the magazine, so take your time to choose. Understood? Well then, I'll go make dinner. Call me if you're done. Saying that, Rudy stood up from the sofa. What kind of dish are you making today? Italian. It's a housewarming celebration. So, and this Italian dish is something you eat for celebrations? No, not really. It's just something I felt like making. I see. I had a feeling you were an easygoing person. But now I'm sure. As long as I'm not bothering anyone else, I don't care. Rudy shrugged his shoulders and headed to the kitchen. After returning to the room, Nmi silently looked at the fashion magazine but found herself unconsciously sketching designs on paper. I drew it myself. But it's such a strange outfit. Nmi frowned as she looked at the black and white design she had created. The drawing depicted a person wearing a cloak, a white button-down shirt with a tie as an inner layer, and a women's black business suit on top. For the bottom, they wore a black skirt that matched the business suit. But since the knees were visible, the person was also depicted wearing pants. It was a new fashion that blended elements of both modern and fantasy. As Nmi stared at her design, there was a knock on the door. Come in. Excuse me. As Nmi called out, the door opened, and Solaris entered. Dinner will be ready in another 10 minutes. I see. Understood. Solaris, who had lowered their head to leave, noticed the design sketches on the desk and became curious. approaching to take a closer look. "Don't look, it's embarrassing." Nmi tried to hide it, but Solaris was faster and took the sketches before she could. "Don't worry, wearing the pajamas you're currently wearing outside would be more embarrassing in the eyes of society than these design sketches." "Pajamas? Embarrassing?" Nmi was shocked by Solaris' blunt response. Meanwhile, Solaris observed the design sketches intently. "What about the colors?" Nmi snapped out of her shock and started to think. "Colors? I think a subtle green for the cloak, so it doesn't stand out in the forest. And the dye? I haven't decided." "Then let's go with red." "Why?" "I matched it to your hair." "I see." "Indeed, it might be better to limit the color choices. Also, business suits are considered unfashionable, so let's go sleeveless." "No. That would be embarrassing if my underarm hair was visible." "At least short sleeves." Nmi's objection wasn't due to laziness. In this world, except for noble women, most people didn't bother with hair removal due to limited supply of razors. "Shave with a razor, please." "If you find it bothersome, we can arrange for permanent hair removal." "Also, this skirt is unfashionable." "Yes, let's go with a long slit skirt." Solaris made modifications to the design sketches, changing the skirt to a slit skirt. Upon seeing that, Nmi's eyes widened. "With that, my thighs will be visible." "That's the intention." "By the way, there won't be any pants underneath the skirt, of course." "No way, that's embarrassing. Besides, if I expose my legs in the forest, they'll get cut by the grass." "If you wear reinforced stockings, it will be fine." "Stockings?" Nmi, who didn't know what stockings were, tilted her head in confusion. "Think of them as stretchy socks that make your skin appear smooth." "Are such things available?" "In that case, I've scanned this, so I'll return it to you." "Ah." Nmi didn't understand what scanning meant, but before she could stop Solaris, they had already left the room. "I'll drink and forget about it tonight." Nmi made a resolution in her heart for her second escape from reality of the day. When Nmi descended to the first floor, a rich aroma of tomatoes and cheese wafted through the air. That smells delicious." "It's roasted tomatoes and cheese." As she called out towards the kitchen, Rudy began placing the dishes on the table. The sweet scent of tomatoes came from margarita pizza. The pizza dough was spread with tomato sauce, topped with mozzarella cheese and basil leaves, and baked in the oven. In addition to the tomato sauce, there was a piquant aroma coming from the pasta arrabbiata. Chili peppers and garlic were sautéed in olive oil, then tomato sauce was added to create a vibrant red sauce that coated the pasta. The vegetable dish was caprese salad. It consisted of thinly sliced tomatoes and mozzarella cheese, seasoned with salt and pepper, and drizzled with olive oil, a simple yet flavorful dish. For the meat dish, there was cotolette alla Milanese, a Milanese-style braided veal cutlet. The veal was tenderized, seasoned, coated with flour, beaten eggs, and breadcrumbs, then fried in olive oil. It was garnished with cherry tomatoes and parsley. The final dessert was tiramisu. Since there wasn't enough time to make it from scratch, it was a store-bought one. As the dishes were placed on the table, Solaris brought wine. "Today's wine is a bit expensive." "That sounds exciting." Rudy held the bottle firmly and with a pop, the wine cork flew off. "Wow!" Startled by the flying cork, Nmi exclaimed, and Rudy poured the wine into a glass and handed it to her. "The wine is sparkling." Observing the effervescence in her glass, Rudy asked a question. "Are you unfamiliar with sparkling wine?" "I might just be ignorant, but I've never seen or heard of it." It should be noted that sparkling wine doesn't exist in this world. It's fizzy and refreshing, and it can make you quite tipsy. Don't drink too much. Anyway, before we start drinking, interrupting me, Rudy poured wine into another glass and handed it to Solaris. "Here, this one's for you." "Me, I can't get drunk, and I don't need to drink." "You can't drink?" "I don't need it, but I am capable of consuming food and beverages." "Solaris, try to understand human emotions." "You're hopeless." Rudy interjected and scolded Solaris, and Nmi tried to calm the situation. "Well, let's not argue." "Solaris, just for today, join us for the celebration of our new home." Understood. As Solaris held the wine glass, Nmi spoke up. "That's right." To Anu abode. "Better late than never, to the meeting of the three of us." "I am not a human." Nmi spoke first, followed by Rudy, and then Solaris corrected her. "You need to read the atmosphere, Nmi." "Ha ha ha." Lastly, Solaris, say something. "I don't understand the necessity of a toast, but congratulations." As soon as Solaris finished speaking, The three raised their glasses. Cheers. CH-36. 1 month had passed since Nmi's house had been renovated. The season had transitioned from spring to early summer, with the sunlight illuminating the forest through the vibrant young leaves. On a sunny morning, Nmi sat in a reclining chair on the terrace of her log cabin, sipping coffee and gazing at the scenery before her. In front of her, Rudy and Solaris swung their practice swords, engaged in combat training. Nmi had witnessed Rudy's battles before, but Solaris was far stronger than even a seasoned soldier. In her days as an adventurer, Nmi had seen many warriors. Seeing Solaris hold her own against Rudy while still in her maid uniform made Nmi believe that Solaris possessed comparable strength. Both Rudy and Solaris had the Galactic Empire's integrated martial arts installed in their electronic brains. In terms of technique, they were much stronger than the warriors on this planet. However, neither of them had any practical experience, so they diligently trained day by day. Even as childcare androids, "You guys are ridiculously strong," Rudy exclaimed. "It's in my specifications," Solaris replied. As Rudy parried Solaris's sword, he twisted his body and retaliated with a spinning kick. "It's part of my programming," Solaris said while avoiding the kick, then swiftly struck with a palm strike using her left hand. Rudy narrowly evaded the strike by tilting his head. Before Solaris could retract her left arm, Rudy grabbed her left wrist, twisted his body, and threw her with one hand. Solaris thought she would be slammed onto the ground, but she twisted her body mid-air and landed on her feet. Before Rudy could regain his posture, she struck him on the head with the hilt of her sword. Sensing the danger, Rudy activated his electronic brain. He entered a zone and evaded the attack with a backstep. Then, Rudy glared at Solaris and raised his voice. "That was dangerous. If I get hit on the head with your brute strength, I could die." "My apologies. There was a face in front of me that I felt like punching, and I got carried away," Solaris replied. "Are you joking right now?" Rudy asked, wondering if the android had developed emotions. "It's not a joke, it's provocation," Solaris responded calmly to the question. "It would be unbearable if I died because of your idiocy." "Training is cancelled for today," Rudy declared. "Thank you for your hard work," Solaris replied, bowing her head as opposed to Rudy's grumpy reaction, then approached me, who had been observing their training. "Do you need a refill on your drink?" Solaris asked. Nmi shook her head in response. "No, I'm good." "But Solaris, you're strong." "It's in my specifications," Solaris replied. While Solaris bowed her head, pleased with the praise, Rudy approached from behind and spoke. "Hey, good morning. You're looking cool today." "Thank you," Nmi replied. Nmi's face turned slightly embarrassed as she responded to Rudy's comment. The reason was that the clothes she was currently wearing had been designed by herself and made by Solaris. The scene shifts back in time to 5 days after Nmi's housewarming party. Nmi was relaxing in the unfamiliar living room of her new house when Solaris appeared in front of her, holding a large bag. "Nmi, the clothes are ready." "Huh? Did you really make them?" "Of course." Casually, Solaris responded to Nmi's surprise and placed the bag on the table, untying the knot. Inside, numerous outfits designed by Nmi appeared. Nmi was left speechless. While Nmi was still in a daze, Solaris began explaining about the clothes. "I've created 10 sets of tops and bottoms, 2 cloaks, 20 shirts, and 5 neckties. Additionally, I've brought 20 reinforced stockings and 5 pairs of boots from the Nike cargo. As for undergarments, since there was nothing available, I brought 30 bras and panties each. If anything is insufficient, please give me further instructions." Nmi listened to Solaris's explanation with a blank expression, but when she held a bra in her hand, she tilted her head. "Is this a bra?" Nmi was familiar with bras that were simply cloth wraps worn around the chest to prevent sagging. However, the bra she held in her hand had a 3-dimensional structure. "I adjusted the size to fit Nmi's measurements, so it should be fine," Solaris assured. "But how do you put this on?" Nmi asked. "I will show you how," Solaris replied after contemplating Nmi's question for a while. She then led her to the bathroom. After 15 minutes, Nmi, now wearing the undergarments that Solaris had helped her put on, stood in front of the mirror in astonishment. "Somehow, my chest looks bigger than before," Nmi remarked. "It's designed to lift and enhance," Solaris explained. "And, aren't these panties a bit skimpy on fabric?" Nmi asked. "We usually conceal them, but when revealed, they're designed for impact," Solaris replied. Your creativity is impressive. Following that, Solaris brought the clothes she had made and dressed me in all of them. Using the data she had acquired when me was injured, Solaris replicated the clothes me had designed down to the last detail. On top, there was a sleeveless black slim suit that accentuated me's body shape. The exposed neckline revealed a white shirt with a red tie. The bottom consisted of a wide-slit black skirt, matching the color scheme. The slits revealed me's thighs and knee-high black boots. What do you think? Solaris asked, seeking feedback. I feel like a jester, me replied. In that case, it's not an issue. Why did that response come up? Please make sure to shave the unnecessary hair later. Otherwise, you might really become a jester. Don't ignore me. Do you have any dissatisfaction? Solaris inquired as me grew agitated, to which she scowled. I don't have any complaints about the clothes, but, well, aren't they a bit flashy? You can conceal them with a cloak, so there's no problem. Besides, your previous attire also stood out, in the sense of a poor person. Upon hearing that, Solaris directed her gaze towards the green robe me had been wearing. Was it really that bad? It would be effective if it were intended for a crazy witch. I see. As me felt downcast, Solaris bowed and left the bathroom. When me returned to the living room, she found Rudy drinking protein shake in the kitchen after his training session. Hey, what's with that outfit? Rudy asked, wide-eyed at me's attire. Solaris made it, but isn't it strange? In response to me's question, Rudy shook his head and gave a thumbs up. It looks cool. What other outfits do you have? Other outfits? Come to think of it, I made several, but they all turned out to be the same, me said. Hearing that, Rudy sighed and shook his head. Solaris, why do you only make the same clothes? Your head only follows orders and nothing else. This marks the end of part 1. Going into a village next, and many new characters would be coming up. CH37. A father and son were walking on an untrodden path in the middle of a forest. The first person was an elderly man named Carl. With sharp eyes and a rugged face, he had a masculine appearance that exuded the aura of a seasoned warrior. He wore black leather clothes and carried a large sword on his back. The other person was a boy in his early teens named Franz. He had a gentle face, and his blue eyes reflected an intelligent aura. He was dressed in a sky blue linen robe and held a staff of the same height as himself. Carl was married to a woman named Nina, and they had 3 children. Franz was their youngest son. The entire family, including Carl, were adventurers who had accepted a quest to subdue a monstrous beast that dropped valuable materials. However, when they arrived at the entrance of the forbidden forest where the beast had been sighted, Nina suddenly fell ill and they decided to let her rest at the inn. The remote village, located far from the city, had no doctors, so they had to rely on letting Nina rest at the inn while she suffered. During this time, the village mayor asked Carl to deliver a letter to the Witch of the Abyss who lived in the forest. Since Carl had a connection with the Witch of the Abyss, he believed that she, with her medical knowledge, could cure Nina's illness. Thus, he willingly accepted the village mayor's request. However, since they also had to take care of Nina, Carl decided to leave behind his eldest son, who had excellent combat skills, and his second son, who could use healing magic. He set off with Franz alone to the forest where the Witch of the Abyss resided. Franz, are we going in the right direction? When Carl, who was leading the way, turned around and asked, Franz lifted his head. Yes, according to the map we received, the direction seems correct. Just the direction, huh? We can't help it. After all, there's no path. Well, I guess you're right. Carl turned forward again and let out a sigh as they continued walking on the pathless road blocked by overgrown vegetation. This season, just before summer, was a time when plants grew rapidly, and the once visible path was now obscured by thick weeds. But father, is it true that the Witch of the Abyss lives in a place like this? Franz had his reasons for questioning this choice of location. This forest had long been feared as the habitat of powerful beasts. The most notable examples were the spotted beast that was inside the spaceship Bianca Flare and the dragon that attacked when Rudy landed on this planet. Recently, the Witch of the Abyss, who had killed many people seeking revenge, had also become a target of fear. I don't know, but since there's a client, we have no choice but to go. Father and the mother fought alongside the Witch of the Abyss, right? Only for a short time, in the past. What was she like? To the best of my knowledge, she's the strongest as a sorceress, but as her nickname suggests, She has fallen into the abyss. Is it true that if the person is from Roland, she would kill even women and children? That's just a rumor, and I don't know the truth. But as far as I know, I've never seen her kill defenseless humans. There are rumors that she's the princess of Flotria, which was destroyed by Roland. There's even a bounty from Roland. Oh. While they continued their conversation while moving forward, Franz suddenly felt the presence of a powerful barrier. What's wrong? When Carl looked back, he saw Franz wearing a troubled expression as he cast a spell. But once he finished, Franz shook his head with a somewhat resigned look. I tried to investigate the powerful barrier, but I could only gather a little information. If we continue like this, we might unknowingly change direction and get lost. I see. So, we've arrived safely? Yes, the Witch of the Abyss probably resides ahead. Well then, it's time for this, Carl said as he took out a key from his pocket, which he had received from the village mayor. Now, let's see if it really creates a path. As Carl followed the instructions he received from the village mayor, he inserted the key into the ground, but nothing happened, and he tilted his head in confusion. Did I use it incorrectly? However, after a while, the spot where the key was inserted began to glow. The light moved forward, and soon a glowing path appeared. This is amazing. What kind of magic is this? As Cal, who was not skilled in magic, marveled at the path of light, Franz was even more amazed behind him. Father, this is truly incredible magic. Is that so? The condition that it only activates when inserted into a specified area of the ground, and the fact that it creates a path with light without dispelling the barrier. It's not something ordinary to condense such complex magic into a small key. Well, it's because it's the abyss. Franz widened his eyes in response to Carl's answer. Does it all just end with that? She can kill over 1,000 people with a single spell. The magic is amazing, but the mentality to be able to kill 1,000 people at once is even scarier. That's why she fell into the abyss. Well then, we don't know how long this light will last. Let's keep moving. Understood. After finishing their conversation, Carl and Franz began walking along the illuminated ground. Visitors? Me, who was concocting magic potions while listening to music on her smartphone, raised her head upon realizing that the key she had given to the acquaintance village mayor had been activated. They must have come to check if I'm still alive since it's been a while. Until she met Rudy, Me would go to the unnamed village near the forest to procure food when her stored supplies ran out. She used to go secretly to the village late at night, given her burnt face and being a wanted criminal. However, this year, she hadn't gone to the village at all due to Rudy's arrival and had even completely forgotten about it. Interrupting her work, Me walked to the living room where Rudy and Solaris were playing chess facing each other. Rudy seemed to dislike Solaris, but they trained together in the morning, researched mana restoration potions in the afternoon, and cooked together in the evening. They spent a lot of time together, and Me suspected that they actually got along well. Placing the knight there, in a minimum of 19 moves, checkmate. Wait, it's a waste of time. Good game. Solaris began cleaning up, ignoring Rudy's plea to wait. She's ruthless. Is she really a childcare android? The exterior is leave everything to Haruko-san, so she can be considered a childcare android. However, the interior is a military AI, so if I answer with a yes or no, it would be a number. But I haven't uninstalled the childcare program, so I can still pretend to be affectionate with children. Shall I smile if you'd like? It's creepy to have a fake smile. Then I'll leave it as it is. I have cleaning to do, so excuse me. Sorry. Maybe they're not as close as I thought. Observing their interaction, Me abandoned her previous thoughts. As Solaris stood up and looked towards the entrance of the living room, Me noticed and spoke. Me, are you done with your work? Not yet. But someone is coming towards the house. A visitor? Since moving into the new house a month ago, they hadn't had any visitors, so Rudy was surprised to hear that someone was coming. Well, you know, since there's an alien and an android, be careful not to give away too much, Me said, and both Rudy and Solaris nodded in agreement. CH-38. Carl and Franz proceeded along the path of light, passing through the forest and arriving at a square. The square had a large house made of logs and a small garden next to it, with the grass and trees neatly trimmed. A big house in a forest like this? I don't think anyone lives nearby, so maybe she built it alone. In the midst of a forest overflowing with monsters, they couldn't understand how it was built. As the two approached the house cautiously, the front door opened and Nmi appeared. "Who are you?" "Who are you?" As Nmi looked down at the two and spoke, Carl questioned her, unable to recognize her true identity. "Wait a minute. I feel like I've seen the scruffy beard somewhere." "Ah, I remember. You're Cal, right?" Nmi looked at Cal's face and something clicked in her memory, reminding her that he was Cal, someone she had teamed up with before. "Yes, but who are you?" However, Cal frowned, still unable to recognize me. Right. I completely forgot. Forgetting that her facial burn scars had disappeared, Nmi shifted her left hair to partially cover her face. Carl finally realized it was Nmi. "Do you know who I am now?" Are you Abyss?" Carl was surprised as he looked at Nmi's face. Behind her, Franz was captivated by her beauty and attire, his mouth half open in awe. "I don't like that nickname." "That doesn't matter." "What about the burn scars on your face?" Nmi frowned at being called a disliked nickname. Unfazed by her reaction, Carl asked her a question. "Can't you see? They're healed." "It's not your usual illusion technique, huh?" "No, it's different." "I see. But still, I'm surprised." "Without the burn scars, you're incredibly beautiful." "No matter how much you flatter me, it won't change anything." "So, is the person behind you your son?" "Oh? You figured it out?" After hearing so much about your family. Despite Carl's scruffy appearance, he was actually quite devoted to his family. He had a habit of boasting about his family to the point of annoyance during drinking sessions, and Nmi was one of the victims. "This is Franz, my third son. He resembles me. He's a novice adventurer, but he has talent in magic and has a promising future." "And nice to meet you. I'm Franz." Carl introduced Franz, who had been standing behind him, stumbling over his words as he bowed to Nmi. "I'm glad he doesn't look like Carl." "So, what brings you here today?" "I have a letter from the village chief at the entrance of the forest. Also, Nina has fallen ill and is suffering. I remember you knew more about illnesses than doctors. Please, I beg you to help Nina." Upon hearing Carl's request, Nmi frowned. Nina. She had been considerate of her in many ways. Although she didn't want anyone to enter her house, Nina, Carl's wife, was one of the few friends who treated her kindly despite her scarred face. Moreover, Nmi owed her a favor from their adventurer days, so she wanted to help if possible. "Understood. I can't refuse if it's for Nina's sake. First, I want to hear about her symptoms, so I'll let you in." "I'll at least make some tea." Nmi informed the two and entered the house. "I'm sorry and thank you for helping." "Franz, let's go inside." "Why yes." When Carl and Franz followed Nmi into the living room, they were amazed by its spaciousness and looked around the room. "Don't stare around other people's houses like that. It's rude," Nmi complained, and for some reason, she glared at Carl. "Abyss, in a forest where no one lives, having such a luxurious house and furniture. How can I not be surprised?" Carl retorted, and Nmi recalled feeling the same way when she first entered his house, causing her to smile wryly. "Don't shout in someone else's house." Instead of standing there dumbfounded, "Sit on the sofa," Nmi urged, and the two sat on the sofa as instructed. Then, they were surprised by the springiness of the sofa, its elasticity catching them off guard. Franz had been curious to meet the witch Abyss, but at the same time, he also felt fear. The rumors he had heard about Nmi were that she was an ugly witch with half her face burned, who enjoyed slaughter and mercilessly killed thousands of people, commanding numerous monsters. She was said to have a cruel and brutal personality, and if one even slightly provoked her, it meant certain death. However, upon actually meeting her, Franz noticed that she had no burn scars on her face. She was an intellectual beauty, and her attire was somewhat provocative. Despite her seemingly unhappy demeanor, when she spoke with her father, Nmi seemed like an ordinary woman, and he couldn't imagine her having a cruel personality. Moreover, Nmi wasn't actually in a bad mood, she was just cautious, fearing that her secret about the house and Rudy would be revealed. After receiving the village chief's letter from Cal, Nmi crossed her legs and adjusted herself. Her slit skirt shifted, revealing a glimpse of her thigh. The prevailing underwear style for women on this planet was drawers that covered half of the thigh. "Don't look." Franz, in the midst of puberty, blushed intensely and quickly averted his gaze. In the direction of his diverted gaze, behind the kitchen counter, Rudy and Solaris, who had half of their faces peeking out, made eye contact with them, as if eavesdropping. "Who's there?" Franz noticed them, and the two quickly tried to hide, but it was already too late. They were caught red-handed. Me followed France's gaze and heard hushed voices coming from behind the kitchen counter. We've been found. That's why I said we should hide in the basement. But I'm curious, I can't help it. If we're discovered, it will be a disaster. Besides, it's your fault for letting them into the house. The voices of the two gradually grew louder, catching not only me and France's attention but also Carl's. Hey, Abyss, who are those two? Carl asked, but me didn't answer. Instead, she covered her head with her hands and let out a deep sigh. CH-39. Both of you, come out. When me called, Rudy and Solaris, who were hiding, entered the living room. Seriously? I told you to hide. Me sighed in exasperation at Rudy's apologetic expression and Solaris' emotionless face. Are these two roommates from hell? Rudy is my disciple, and Solaris is my servant. Upon me reluctantly answering Carl's question, he opened his eyes wide in surprise. You, who hates humans, as a disciple? Well, yes, but that's beside the point. Solaris, you forgot to bring tea for the two. Understood. Solaris, who now had an excuse to escape, hurriedly disappeared into the kitchen. In just 1 second, she bowed and turned on her heel, making it seem like an instant. You're the only one being unfair. Left behind, Rudy resented Solaris for disappearing in an instant, considering her a coward. Observing Rudy after hearing that he was an apprentice of the Witch of the Abyss, Franz tilted his head in confusion. There was a reason for his thinking. In order to use magic, mana is necessary in the body. If Rudy was a renowned apprentice of the Witch of the Abyss, he should have magical talent. However, according to Franz's assessment, he couldn't sense any mana from Rudy's body. As Franz wondered about it, Carl spoke to Rudy. You're Rudy, right? Nice to meet you. I'm Carl, and this is my son, Franz. Nice to meet you. I'm Rudy. Rudy nodded politely in response to Carl's greeting. Upon seeing his courteous greeting, Carl and Franz smiled. He's quite well-mannered. No, that's not it. He's just unfamiliar with the local language around here. When Carl addressed me, she smiled wryly in response. Is that so? In Carl's reply, me glanced at Rudy's attire. Rudy was dressed in foreign clothing. He probably came from a distant land. You'll understand if you talk to him. He's a mess and terrible. Rudy, Carl and I used to be acquaintances when I was an adventurer. He's a renowned swordsman. As for Franz, it's our first meeting, but, well, based on my assessment, he seems to have magical talent, although he's still growing. Praised by me, the renowned Witch of the Abyss, Franz had a delighted expression. Then, he tried to greet Rudy and spoke to him. Rudy, I'm Franz. Nice to meet you. What kind of magic are you learning from the Witch of the Abyss? It's theoretical study. Theoretical study? Surprised by the unexpected answer, Franz blinked, and me, who had been listening, chuckled. The basics are important. So, have a drink and ask various questions during that time. As Franz was astonished by Rudy's choice of words, Carl burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. Your way of speaking is truly chaotic. Rudy, are you from the north? How did you figure it out? Amazed by Carl's accurate guess about Rudy being an adventurer from the northern country, Rudy grew wary internally. In the past, I had a conversation with an adventurer who came from the depths of Northern Palace, a city in the far north. He spoke just like you. How did you come here? As Carl spoke, Rudy felt a sense of urgency. But me came to the rescue from the side. Rudy, sit down too. Carl's wife fell ill, and we were discussing her symptoms. Listen to the conversation and let me know if you come up with anything. Feeling relieved that his true identity might not be exposed, Rudy also sat on the sofa. Excuse me. Solaris appeared in the living room with tea for everyone and distributed it, then promptly retreated to the wall. You're sneaking away so quickly. That's unfair. Not appearing in front is the maid's policy. Grumble. When Rudy complained to Solaris through the electronic interface, he responded that it was a natural action, leaving Rudy frustrated. Now that the tea is served, tell us about Nina's condition. How is she? Nina. Although Carl was surprised by how delicious the tea was, he regained his composure and began speaking. Her condition worsened about 5 days ago. She had been unwell before that. She stubbornly kept it to herself, not wanting to trouble us. The symptoms include vomiting, fever, and pain in the lower abdomen. Right now, she's lying in bed, suffering. Me had been listening to Carl, hearing about Nina's symptoms. Gradually, her expression grew pale. Perhaps Nina has a problem with her uterus. I'm not knowledgeable about illnesses, so please enlighten me. If there's a problem with her uterus, can Nina be saved? In response to Carl's question, Nmi wore a desperate expression and shook her head from side to side. She has limited time left. All I can do is try to make her more comfortable without causing her pain. Seriously, Cal, who had thought Nmi could cure her, was shocked and held his head. Franz, sitting next to him, was also surprised. His mind going blank. Observing the downcast state of the two, Nmi wore a troubled expression and turned her gaze towards Rudy. Rudy understood from Nmi's gaze what she was thinking. However, in order to treat Nina, it would be necessary to use the therapeutic culture solution. If he were to proceed with the treatment, there was a possibility that his origins as someone who came from space would be exposed. He wanted to avoid that if possible. Therefore, Rudy intended to refuse even if Nmi told him to do it. Nina is my benefactor. Rudy furrowed his brow at Nmi, who suddenly addressed him. I told you that I'm known as the Witch of the Abyss, right? When I met Carl and Nina, I had a disfigured face from burns, an immense magical power, and a cruel nature due to despair. People feared me, and I hated such humans. Yes, I truly fell into the abyss. Rudy listened attentively to Nmi's serious story, but in his mind, he thought, wow, that sounds so cool. I want to say a line like that at least once, in a foolish manner. Nina treated me kindly despite all that, and with that, well, I regained a tiny bit of conscience. Saying that, Nmi chuckled softly. The current you, master, is interesting. No, kind. Hey, what you just said wasn't a slip of the tongue, your true thoughts slipped out. As Nmi glared at him, Rudy shook his head fervently from side to side. It's just a minor mistake. Well, fine. I would like to help Nina if possible. But in the end, it's up to you, Rudy. Master, that's unfair. Rudy glared at Nmi, burdened with the responsibility of someone's life. He. Have you come to dislike me? Nmi laughed with a slightly lonely expression and sipped her lukewarm tea. It would take more than that for me to dislike you. Rudy huffed and snorted in response. Cal, who didn't understand the negotiation taking place in their conversation, had one thing in mind. Nmi had the conviction that if it was Rudy, he could cure Nina, and she entrusted that decision to Rudy. Rudy-kun, I don't know how you're going to cure Nina, but I firmly believe that if you're with the Witch of the Abyss, you can heal her. There must be some way. Please, save my wife. If you can save her, I'll give you my life. Carl stood up from the sofa, then prostrated himself on the floor, bowing his head to Rudy. Franz, who had been watching, also knelt down and bowed his head, just like Carl. Please, help her. Save my mother. Seeing the desperate bows of the two, Rudy was torn about what to do. T/N, considering how emotionless Rudy is, he gets pretty emotional when it comes to Solaris. Ch40. T/N, just found out that the light novel has ended at chapter 436 I think. Sad to know it's ended but we have a long way to go. Based on what Rudy heard earlier about Nina's symptoms, he concluded that she likely had a tumor in her uterus. And the fact that she had started to suffer despite enduring it meant that the disease had progressed deeply. Of course, Rudy had no acquaintance with Nina. However, she seemed to be Nmi's savior. From Rudy's perspective, whether she was Nmi's benefactor or not, there was no obligation to help a stranger by revealing his true identity. So, ideally, he wanted to leave her to her fate. But now, Carl and Franz were bowing their heads towards Rudy, whom they had just met. Being conceived through artificial insemination and raised without knowing the love of a family, Rudy couldn't understand their actions. Shizo, you shouldn't listen to their request, as it would expose your true identity. Hal, who had been listening to the conversation, spoke to Rudy's electronic brain. I know that even without you telling me. Then you should abandon them. Well, probably, what you're saying is right. But can you see the two people in front of you? They are bowing their heads to me, a complete stranger, to save their loved one, and Carly even said he would sacrifice his life. It's highly irrational since if you die, you won't be able to meet them anymore. It's extremely illogical. Maybe that's what love is. As Rudy said that, Hal's response was delayed. As an AI, I cannot comprehend it. Don't worry, I can't either. After ending the conversation with Hal, Rudy addressed Cal, who was still prostrating. Cal, you said you would sacrifice your life. Is that true? Of course it is. I would do anything if it meant saving Nina's life. In response to Rudy's question, Carl lifted his head and answered. In that case, I'll help you under certain conditions this time. Is it true? While Carl and Francis' eyes sparkled with excitement, Rudy's eyes remained cold. Rudy, are you really okay with this? Me, who asked the question, received a sigh from Rudy. Is that what Shizuo says? Well, this time is an exception. Cal, this house has a secret. Gag. I mean, it's strictly forbidden to reveal the secret of this house. If you ever speak of it, I'll kill you. I'm dead serious about this. I'll assist you when that time comes. Me nodded in response to Rudy's words. Understood. If you say it should remain a secret, I won't even tell my family. I won't speak either. Franz followed Carl and made the same promise. In that case, let's make a contract. A contract? Embed a bomb in Carl's chest. No, that's wrong. I mean, we'll make the agreement. What? Everyone was surprised by that proposal, but Rudy continued without hesitation. The bomb is a mechanism that will explode when certain words are spoken. If it detonates, Carl will definitely die. Are you still willing to be helped? Despite Rudy's threat, Carl nodded without hesitation. Of course. I said I would give my life, and I will definitely keep my promise. Father, beside Carl, Franz shouted. But Carl's determination didn't waver, and he stared at Rudy's odd-colored eyes with a serious gaze. Then I'll help you, Carl. This time, I'll make an exception and there won't be a bomb. But remember, don't speak about it. I will never speak a word. Rudy, thank you. I'm really grateful. Express your gratitude after we save Nina's life. Once again, Carl and Franz bowed their heads, and Rudy made them raise their heads. After calming down a bit, Cal, who sat back on the sofa, spoke up. So, how are you going to cure her? I'll abduct Carl's wife and bring her here. It's not abduction, just bring her along, Me interjected, quick to catch Rudy's joke. Indeed, you could say that. What will you do once you bring her here? Francis' question prompted Rudy to press his index finger against his own mouth. That part will remain a secret. Well, but there's a bigger problem. Where is Nina right now? She's in a village at the entrance of the forest. It would take a 2-day walk from here. Upon Cal's response, Rudy displayed the surrounding map in his electronic brain to verify. Then, he frowned upon realizing that the village was a distant 59 kilometers away. It seems that walking there and back won't make it in time. Solaris, prepare the aerobikes. Solaris, who was standing in the corner of the room, bowed her head at Rudy's command and headed towards the basement. Observing her departing figure, Rudy spoke to her through the electronic brain. Come to think of it, you don't say much. I cannot agree with that. But the captain's orders take top priority. I see. That's very much like you. That's my design. Ending the conversation with Solaris, Rudy addressed Carl. If I go alone since I have no personal connection with Nina, it will turn into a full-blown abduction case. So, Carl, you're coming with me. Franz, stay behind and have fun with Shizuo. I guess I'm useless this time. Fine, I have time. So I'll entertain myself with Franz's magic. While Me nodded in agreement with Rudy's words, Franz, upon hearing that he couldn't come along, became flustered. Huh? Can't I come? Rudy, why are you leaving Franz behind? Franz and Carl voiced their doubts. The aerobike is a 2-seater. It would be impossible to carry Nina back if we force it. I don't understand this aerobike you're talking about. I'll show it to you. Just come with me. Rudy started walking towards the entrance, followed hastily by Carl and Franz. When I went outside, I saw an aerobike that Solaris had delivered parked in front of my house. The aerobike looked like a motorcycle without wheels. Instead of wheels, it hovered slightly above the ground in a low-gravity configuration. As I approached the aerobike, Solaris, who had been waiting beside it, gently handed me a small box. Here's an emergency kit, Solaris said. You're surprisingly considerate, I replied. Haru told me to bring it to you. Haru is indeed impressive. It's a feature I can't replicate. Don't give up so easily. I gave Solaris a stern look and then put the emergency kit into the side box of the aerobike. Cal, hop on already. I called out to Carl as I straddled the bike. However, he seemed unsettled, not knowing what this unfamiliar aerobike was. Am I supposed to ride this? What else would you ride? Well, yeah, but what is this thing? It has no wheels, and I have no idea how it moves. It's a vehicle Shizuo made. Don't worry. Is it some kind of abyss? Of course, it was a lighter reassure Carl. What? Me, who had been observing silently, suddenly reacted with a strange voice to the fabricated story. Abyss. You've changed a lot since we moved away from civilization. Oh really? Yeah, but it's not a bad thing. You've become a fine woman, Carl replied jokingly, causing Mi's face to blush. You idiot. Go quickly and bring Nina back. No need to tell me. Let's go, Rudy. Wow. This is amazing. This is what it means to live it up. Rudy turned around after hearing Carl's remark and stared at him with a gaze filled with admiration. Rudy, what's wrong? It's nothing. Just hold on tight. Tahoe. No, I mean, hold on. Rudy started the engine of the aerobike. The aerobike trembled and lifted slightly off the ground, causing the surrounding plants to sway from the air pressure. Wow! Carl and Franz were amazed by the sight of the bike. The aerobike changed its course in midair, heading towards the village, its destination. Shizo, I'm off. Return safely with Nina. I promise, it'll be a smooth ride. Rudy twisted the throttle, and the aerobike raced through the air, skimming just above the ground. Hoa! With Carl's scream, the aerobike disappeared into the forest. My spaceship has been stranded, but there is an Earth-like planet in front of me, so I want to abandon my past life and live an easy life. CH-41-50. CH-41. Rudy and Carl were riding on an aerobike, dashing through the forest. Rudy, equipped with a three-dimensional terrain map from Nike, and the aerobike receiving safety support functions through its electronic brain, swiftly maneuvered through the trees at speeds exceeding 70 km per hour. Initially, Carl would scream every time it seemed like they would collide with a tree. However, being a seasoned warrior, he gradually got used to it and began to enjoy the current situation. Wow, this thing is amazing. I had no idea we could go this fast. We're slowing down because we're in the forest. When we're serious, we can go up to 350 kilometers per hour. I don't really understand what that speed means, but I know we can go even faster. As they rode the aerobike, they noticed a fallen tree ahead. Lower your head. Following Rudy's command, Carl ducked his head as the aerobike swiftly passed under the fallen tree. Woohoo! Carl looked back, sweating coldly. However, a smile adorned his face. So, how much longer until we reach the village? Normally, it would take around 2 hours by going all the way around. But we're taking a shortcut. A shortcut? You don't mean jumping over a cliff, do you? Carl was astonished by Rudy's words. Between the entrance of the forest and Mi's house, there was a cliff that split the land. Usually, to get from the village to Mi's house, they would have to make a large detour to the south, avoiding the cliff. That's exactly what I mean. However, Rudy answered that they would indeed jump over the cliff. Carl was taken aback by Rudy's response, but he immediately thought of Nina. I entrusted my life to this guy. It's too late to start getting scared now. His momentary hesitation quickly vanished, and Carl shouted loudly to Rudy, all right, go for it. Don't wet your pants from being scared. In response to Carl's remark, Rudy shouted back at him. As the cliff approached, Rudy increased the speed of the aerobike. Narrowly passing through the gaps between the trees, a 60-meter wide gap in the earth appeared in front of them. Hold on tight. Carl clung to Rudy's body. The forest leaves that covered the bike disappeared, and the aerobike shone under the sunlight. The aerobike soared high into the air. Overwhelmed by the sudden brightness of the sun, Carl's vision recovered, and he realized they were flying over the edge of the cliff. Whoa! Excited by the experience of flying, Carl shouted with joy. Looking down from the cliff, he saw a river flowing far below. Looking up, he noticed the opposite cliff drawing closer. The aerobike landed on the other side of the cliff and bounced. While twisting the brake grip, Rudy brought the aerobike to a stop. That was quite dangerous. Yeah. Although Carl had a great time flying through the air, a cold sweat streamed down his whole body as he looked back and reflected on the experience. Rudy, we might have gotten carried away. Yeah, I feel the same way. It's my fault for provoking you when we left. Rudy blamed me for their recklessness, and then, slightly reducing their speed, they raced through the forest once again. At you. Meanwhile, Mi, who had received unwarranted criticism from Rudy, was on the terrace of her house, letting out a loud sneeze. Mi-sama, are you okay? I'm fine. Franz expressed his concern, but Mi waved her hand, assuring him that everything was fine. Mi had said that she would show Franz her magic, but she had never taken on an apprentice or guided anyone before. Even Rudy, the only person she had taken as an apprentice, couldn't use magic due to a lack of mana. The extent of Nmi's role as his mentor was limited to talking about magic during drinking sessions. Nmi had doubts about her suitability as a teacher. But since Rudy seemed satisfied, saying that theory is important, she thought, well, I guess it's fine. So, Nmi, who had never taught anyone before, asked Franz to show his magic and created a humanoid target in the yard using magic. Franz, surprised that Nmi effortlessly created the target with earth magic, answered, understood, and demonstrated his proficiency in wind magic, his specialty, aiming at the target. From Nmi's perspective, Franz, who boasted about it, was indeed talented. He maintained the power, minimized mana consumption, and displayed sufficient concentration, hitting the target with his wind blades without missing. While watching Franz's magic, Nmi recalled the time when they were the same age. Back then, I used magic without thinking about consumption. Wait, there's nothing to teach him. Realizing that there was nothing particular to teach him, Nmi held her head in her hands. On the other hand, no matter how many times Franz hit the target with his magic without breaking it, he felt frustrated. It still won't break. How much mana did she pour into that doll? The humanoid target made by Nmi's abundant mana was so sturdy that Franz couldn't break it no matter how much effort he put in. Although Franz's evaluation of Nmi had risen due to this, the person herself was completely unaware and was lamenting. Okay, let's take a break here. Sure. After Nmi had seen Franz's magic, she led him to a table on the terrace and had him sit down. I have a sports drink for you. Sports? Oh, thank you. When Franz sat down, Solaris offered him a cold sports drink. It's delicious. Feeling uneasy about the white beverage he had never seen before, Franz decided that it probably wasn't poisoned and drank more than half of it, finding it surprisingly tasty. So, Naruko-sama, how was my magic? T/N, another name, how many does Nmi have? It was average. As Nmi responded to Franz's question, he visibly slumped in disappointment. Just average. You have the basics down. Now, you need to add some creativity. Earlier, you just threw wind blades, but if you add originality to it, it becomes more interesting. Creativity. Not understanding how to add creativity to a simple wind blade spell, Franz tilted his head in confusion. For example, Franz's wind blades were transparent, but even if you sense mana, you can't tell where they're coming from. So, try adding colors to the blades. Humans prioritize visual cues over mana sensing. So if you shoot blades with colors and then split them to generate colorless blades, the opponents often focus on the colored blades and don't notice the colorless ones. Like this. After explaining, Nmi recited an incantation herself and shot out red-colored wind blades. The wind blades flew straight toward the target but bounced up along the way, missing the target. However, unnoticed by Franz, colorless blades were created from the colored blades and sliced the target vertically. Amazing. Witnessing Nmi's magic for the first time, Franz was amazed by the creativity of the magic and the power that effortlessly split the target he had tried to destroy. Anyway, that's the idea. I find it helpful. Franz looked at Nmi with eyes full of admiration. Now, let's focus on the theory. Let's think together about what kind of variations we can create from your magic. Yes, Franz understood the meaning of theory that he had heard from Rudy and nodded. On the other hand, Nmi, while thinking, is this really okay? Was content with Franz's satisfaction and thought, well, I guess it's fine. Ch42. 1 hour had passed since they had left Nmi's home. The sun began to tilt towards the west, and the sky was dyed a deep crimson. Rudy parked his airbike and concealed it in the bushes around 1 kilometer away from the village where Nina, who was in critical condition, resided. He checked the time on his analog wristwatch. The ring pointed to 5:12 p.m. If the airbike is found, it'll be trouble. We should walk from here, Rudy said. Yeah, you're right. I do want to see Nina as soon as possible, but causing a commotion would be a hassle, Carl agreed. With Carl's consent to Rudy's suggestion, the two of them started walking towards the village. By the way, Rudy-sama, Carl began to speak as they started walking, but Rudy shook his head and interrupted him. Carl, you're older than me, so there's no need for you to address me so formally. If anything, it's disrespectful for me to address you casually. Carl-sama, senpai. Rudy crossed his arms, contemplating, even though in reality, Rudy was almost twice Carl's age. However, Carl appeared older, So Rudy had forgotten about the average lifespan of this planet and mistakenly assumed that Carl was older. Well, it was too late now. No, honorifics are not necessary. Rudy, you're willingly revealing important secrets in order to save my wife's life. Respect and age difference don't matter when it comes to someone I admire, Carl replied with a wry smile. Rudy stared at Carl with a puzzled expression. You don't mind being addressed casually? If some random kid called me by my first name, I might be angry, but Rudy, you're special. I always thought adventurers were more rough and careless. Ha ha ha, your thoughts aren't entirely wrong. Amused by Rudy's words, Carl burst into laughter. So, what did you want to talk about? Come to think of it, I forgot. We haven't decided on the reward yet, Carl said. Reward? What do you mean? Rudy tilted his head in confusion. It's the reward for saving Nina's life. In that case, it's not Carl's life. No, it's not compensation. No, that was the contract for not revealing your secret. Nina's reward is separate. You're quite honorable, Carl. Rudy made that comment, and Carl smiled. That's how much I love my wife. I don't quite understand. Even after hearing Carl's words, Rudy, who still didn't understand what it meant to love someone, couldn't grasp the concept. There's nothing I want particularly. So you have no desires? I'm a fairly well-known adventurer, so I have a decent amount of money. I don't need money. Carl was being modest, but as an adventurer, he was well known, and in his home country, he would be respected as a hero. So, despite appearances, he had earned more money than a poor nobleman. However, the currency on this planet had a simple structure, so if he wanted to, he could easily create money and cause an economic collapse. Therefore, Rudy didn't particularly desire it. I lack desire. Just say it if you have any, don't hold back. Is there something wrong, by any chance? There is, quite a lot. Understanding Carl's doubt, Rudy nodded in response. I see. So, keeping your existence a secret is the biggest reward for you. I appreciate your understanding. Understood. But I'll still give you a reward, with my life. If you ever need any help, contact me through the Adventurers Guild. No matter the reason, I'll rush to your aid as soon as possible. I'll accept your feelings. As Rudy responded, Carl seemed satisfied and nodded. As the two approached the village, they noticed that the village was in a state of commotion. I have a bad feeling about this. Could it be something happening to Nina? Hold on a second. Rudy restrained Carl, who was about to run in a hurry. The whole village seems to be in an uproar. It's probably unrelated to Nina. Carl regained his composure upon Rudy's observation. You're right. It does seem that way. Calm down. Yeah, you're right. Let's pay attention. But from here, we can't really understand the situation. Let's get closer. In that case, I'll try to be inconspicuous, Rudy said as he pulled the hood of his long coat down, covering his face. That's a good idea. If necessary, I'll handle it, so try not to speak too much. I'll leave it to you. Quietly, the two of them advanced, managing to enter the village without being noticed. As Rudy and Carl infiltrated the village and approached the commotion, they saw an elderly man and a well-dressed man with brown hair arguing. 4 soldiers surrounded them, with villagers forming another circle around them. The village chief was being held by the soldiers, while the well-dressed man grabbed his collar and occasionally punched him. Rudy and Carl wanted to enter the inn quickly and meet Nina, but unfortunately, the commotion was happening right in front of the inn, making it impossible for them to get closer. They wore expressions of bewilderment. We can't get close to the inn like this. It's disturbing their business. Let's find somewhere else, Carl murmured behind the villagers surrounding the commotion, and Rudy, who couldn't see what was happening inside due to his short stature, agreed with bounces. Hey, what's going on over there? Impatient, Carl spoke to the man in front of him, who turned around and looked surprised upon realizing it was Carl. However, he explained the situation quietly. I don't know the details, but the Lord's son, Alfred Sama, came demanding medicine from the village chief. Apparently, the village chief has been buying medicine from somewhere. It's a remarkable medicine that cures any illness instantly, but lately, tax collection has been strict. So, the village chief has been selling the extra medicine to pay the taxes. But the Lord found out, and now Alfred Sama has come to take it by force. Medicine? Yeah. The village chief doesn't have any medicine right now. There hasn't been a medicine peddler coming around recently. The village chief claims there's no stock, but Alfred Sama doesn't believe him, So he's threatening him like that. I see. Thanks. No problem. It's a small favor. As Carl expressed his gratitude, the man turned back and resumed watching the commotion. Rudy, hold on a moment. What is it? Carl tugged at Rudy's sleeve and moved to a less crowded area. I overheard the conversation just now. My guess is the medicine they're talking about. Is it the one made by the Abyss Witch? I didn't hear it. But she does make medicine, right? Rudy could have confirmed the whereabouts of the medicine by calling me. But since Carl was right in front of him, he didn't check. Well, it's probably not our concern. Ignore it. Both of them nodded at the same time, and they started moving towards the inn, blending into the crowd. CH-43. The soldier, who was surrounding the village chief and Alfred, noticed a duo approaching from the crowd. One of them was a distinguished and robust man, while the other was a suspicious figure with a hood that completely concealed their head. As the soldier became wary of the duo, a fellow soldier noticed and approached them. What's wrong? It's them. The soldier nodded and conveyed the information about the duo to his companion. When his companion shifted his gaze, he immediately recognized one of the individuals as Cal, his eyes widening in surprise. Could it be Black Sword Cal? The Black Sword, rumored to slay any monster in a single strike. The hero Cal, dressed entirely in black with a large sword on his back. It must be him. The voices of the two soldiers grew louder, catching the attention of Alfred, who was interrogating the village chief. What's the matter? There is Black Sword Cal present in this place. The soldier pointed at Cal, who also noticed and appeared flustered. Black Sword Cal. Could it be? Alfred had also heard rumors about Cal. Being in this remote borderland meant he must have had a purpose, perhaps searching for a certain medicine. Alfred moved away from the village chief and began walking towards Cal and Rudy. Well, if it isn't the famous Lord Cal. Alfred approached Cal and addressed him. When Cal was spoken to, Rudy, who had been looking down with his head covered by the hood, bumped into Cal's back and made a squish sound. I don't know who you are, but I have urgent matters to attend to. Leave me alone. Cal tried to hurry away, but Alfred stood in his way. What do you intend to do? Cal's voice carried anger and menace, causing Alfred and the soldier to get goosebumps. Nevertheless, Alfred swallowed his saliva, put on a forced smile, and bravely continued talking. I only want to know the location of a certain medicine in this village. Are you trying to hide the secret of the medicine by behaving so aggressively? You have a wild imagination. Are you seeking the medicine to cure your own head? Carl's joke elicited laughter from the villagers who heard it. On the other hand, Alfred, who felt ridiculed, transformed his face from a forced smile to an expression of anger. As expected of a mere commoner, even if you're a hero, you lack the words and attitude towards nobles. Hey, I'm really in a hurry right now. I don't know who you are, but if you get in my way, I'll respond accordingly. That's my line. The village chief, he's selling medicine, but there are no pharmacists capable of healing such injuries and illnesses in this territory. So, it must be coming from a distant place or perhaps from the Forbidden Forest. Cal, are you involved in this? Alfred's delusions made Carl sigh and look up at the sky. Before Carl's patience reached its limit, the inn's door swung open forcefully, and Carl's eldest son, Dominic, appeared. So, it's really you, Dad? Dominic. Carl responded to Dominic, but Dominic had other concerns and tugged at Carl's sleeve. Mother's condition is worsening. Come inside quickly. Nina. Carl hurriedly entered the inn, followed by Rudy. Wait, I haven't finished speaking yet. Left behind, Alfred shouted and, accompanied by the soldier, chased after Carl. Nina. As Carl entered the room, Nina was lying on the bed, sweating profusely and groaning in pain. Near her, Carl's second son, Sean, tightly held Nina's hand while desperately chanting recovery magic. Sean glanced at Carl upon hearing his voice, but as soon as he heard Nina's agonizing voice, he quickly returned his gaze and resumed his treatment. Nina, hold on. We can cure your illness soon. Nina, who had noticed Carl's voice, weakly opened her eyes. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. You'll feel better soon, Rudy. Carl encouraged Nina and immediately called for Rudy. I'll be intruding for a moment. Rudy appeared promptly between Carl and Sean. Sean was surprised by Rudy's sudden appearance and gave him a second look. Though Nina looked frail and emaciated now, as Carl boasted, she was a beautiful woman with golden hair, bearing a striking resemblance to France. Furthermore, Carl's eldest son, Dominic, had ash-colored hair and a larger, muscular build than Carl. His facial features were somewhat similar to Carl's, but he exuded a strict aura. On the other hand, Sean, the second son, had a slender physique and black hair. Unlike Dominic, his facial features closely resembled Nina's, and he was about the same height as Carl. This is a matter of urgency. Let's start by alleviating her pain with painkillers. Rudy retrieved painkillers from the first aid kit he brought and injected Nina's thin arm with the syringe needle. Hey, what are you doing? Don't interfere. Dominic, surprised by Rudy's actions, tried to stop him. But Carl halted him first. After a while, Nina, who had been suffering, showed a slightly relieved expression and fell asleep. Carl, I'll carry Nina. Understood. Rudy confirmed that Nina had fallen asleep and wrapped her in a bedsheet. Carl carefully lifted her in his arms and stood up. Father, what in the world? Sean, who had ceased his incantation, approached Carl and spoke to him, to which Carl smiled kindly and looked down at Sean. Dominic, Sean, you did well. Leave the rest to me. I will definitely cure Nina. So, don't worry. Father, where are you taking Mother? To the abyss. Once Mother recovers, we'll definitely come back. Dominic and Sean, who had prepared themselves for their mother's death, were shocked to hear that she could be cured. And the fact that she would be cured in the abyss shocked them even more. The abyss? However, Alfred, who had been causing a commotion at the entrance of the room, was equally surprised to hear about the abyss. Tell me the whole story. As Alfred pressed forward, Carl stared back at him with an angry gaze. Move aside. I'll move once I hear the story. From the situation, it seems like your wife is on the verge of death, and the only one who can cure her is the Witch of the Abyss. If you understand the situation, then step aside. We're in a race against time. Carl shouted back, and Dominic and Sean also felt anger towards Alfred's attitude. However, since Alfred was the Lord's son, they couldn't rashly lay a hand on him. Do you even understand? The Witch of the Abyss has a bounty of the highest reward in history, 10 million gold coins. If it becomes known that the Witch of the Abyss can create a medicine that can even cure someone on the brink of death, the bounty will skyrocket. Ha ha ha, if I report this to my father and capture her alive, I can live a life of luxury forever. Alfred, who had been talking to Cal, became infatuated with the bounty on the Witch of the Abyss and started laughing. Are you trying to anger the Abyss? You'll die. Even if it's the Abyss, it's just a single witch. We can handle it somehow. Carl wore a pitying expression in response to that reply. I'll give you a warning, just in case. Don't lay a hand on the Witch of the Abyss. It won't end with just your life. That's just a mere rumor. You're annoying. Alfred, who was about to retort to Cal, let out a groan as Rudy's kick landed in his stomach in the midst of their conversation. Ch 44. Amidst the astonishment of everyone present, Rudy grabbed Alfred's hair as he squatted down, pulled out a short sword from his waist, and pressed it against his neck. If you want this idiot to remain alive, step aside. A soldier who regained his senses drew his sword. However, upon seeing the sword pressed against Alfred's neck, he could do nothing but step back. Rudy-kun. Carl had an expression that seemed to say, you've done it now. We don't have much time, we have to push through. To anyone's eyes, Nina's life was hanging by a thread, and time was of the essence. What am I hesitating for? If it saves Nina's life, I'll become a wanted criminal or anything. Carl also looked down at Nina in his arms and made up his mind. If you don't want to become wanted criminals, sever ties with me. When Carl addressed his two sons, they looked at each other and nodded simultaneously. Then, suddenly, Dominic swiftly struck one of the soldiers, causing him to faint, and while the remaining soldiers were still surprised, Sean quickly chanted a spell, causing the soldiers to stagger and fall to the ground. The two sons who defeated the soldiers turned to Carl. You're kidding, right? I can't imagine our family being separated. If it saves Mom's life, we'll become wanted criminals too. In response to Dominic and Sean's replies, Carl laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, that's my boys, I'm proud of you. Rudy-kun, let's go. Roger that. As Rudy started walking, Alfred, who was still being held by the hair, shouted loudly. Ow, damn it, let go. You geese won't get away with this. You're really annoying. Rudy said so and slammed Alfred's face against the wall, still holding his hair. You let go. He repeatedly slammed Alfred's face against the wall, causing blood to flow from his nose and mouth. until he passed out. Aren't you going too far? This idiot picked a fight. Be grateful that you're still alive. When Carl spoke to Rudy, Rudy replied with heavy breathing. Father, who is this boy? When Dominic asked about Rudy's true identity, Carl shook his head. I can't explain it now. But, well, figure it out. I see, I understand. Dominic thought that there were circumstances that couldn't be explained in the village, where someone might be listening. He decided not to ask any further for now. Let's go. Prompted by Rudy, everyone dashed out of the inn and headed towards the forest. The sun disappeared below the horizon, and the sky transformed into a starry night. In the darkened forest, Sean illuminated the path with his magic while the footsteps of the four could be heard treading on the grass amidst the chirping of insects. In Carl's arms, Nina had a pained expression as she slept, and Carl occasionally checked on her, relieved that she was still alive. So, Father, where are we heading? We're almost there. Without answering Sean's question, Carl followed Rudy, who was running ahead. As Rudy walked ahead, he contacted Hal through his cybernetic brain interface. It's an emergency. The patient's condition is worse than expected. Assuming an arrival time of 1 hour, I will begin preparations in the medical room. Prepare it in 50 minutes. Running an aerobike in the forest at night is dangerous. I know that even without being told. Also, I know you're monitoring from above. Track Carl's 2 sons and bring Solaris to them. Are you sure? If it weren't for that idiot getting involved, I would have left them in the village. Damn it. As Rudy ended the communication with Hal, they arrived at their destination, and Rudy moved the aerobike from the bushes. Cal, to prevent Nina from falling, tie her with your robe. Upon Rudy's command, Carl nodded and began to tie his own body and Nina together, tearing the sheet that was wrapping her. Your names are Dominic and Sean, right? Yes. Yeah. While Carl was working, Rudy talked to Dominic and Sean. It's dangerous to go back to the village. Hide in the forest until a lifeless woman comes to pick you up, then run away with her. Wait. Even if you say she'll pick us up, how will you know our location? Through Shizo's magic, somehow. It was actually monitoring through thermal sensing from Nike, but Rudy pretended that it was Nmi's magic that could do anything. The magic of the Witch of the Abyss. Well, that seems fine. Rudy, was it? I trust you since my father and mother are in your hands. Sean nodded, and Dominic helped Carl while they both got onto the back seat of the aerobike. Rudy-kun, we ready? Let's hurry. Once Carl seated Nina between Rudy and himself, ensuring that she wouldn't fall under any circumstances, he called out to Rudy. A temporary farewell, salad bar. Rudy said, and the aerobike rushed into the darkness of the forest. They went that way. Search for them. I heard a noise. It's over there. After Rudy's aerobike had gone, voices could be heard from a distance. It seems like they have no time to be surprised. Let's run away. It's already a chaotic situation, but right now, we have no choice but to trust that Rudy. Dominic and Sean looked at each other, nodded, and ran into the depths of the forest to evade the pursuers. Me, I'm going out, so please have ready to eat meals for dinner. In the living room of their house, me and Franz were engaged in a conversation about magic when Solaris placed 2 cups of ramen and hot water on the table. Going out now? Yes, precisely. Me looked out the window, where darkness had enveloped the night, making it a dangerous time to venture into the forest. Where are you going at this hour? Me asked Solaris. It's for the retrieval of Franz Summer's brothers. You mean my brothers, Dominic and Sean? Franz was surprised and asked Solaris. That's what I've heard. The estimated return is in 2 days. Wait a minute. What the heck is going on? I don't understand the situation. Please rest assured. I am also struggling to understand. Well then, as I am in a hurry, I shall take my leave. Saying so, Solaris swiftly left the house. Naruko-sama, what in the world? Don't ask me. But right now, the most pressing issue is this. Saying that, Mi directed her gaze to the cup ramen placed on the table. How are we supposed to eat this? I don't know either. Mi and Franz looked at each other and tilted their heads in unison. T/N, cup ramen, only the greatest invention for mankind and for all the gamers who didn't die due to hunger because of it. CH-45. The aerobike carrying Rudy and the others was faster than when they were heading to the village, racing through the forest of darkness. Unlike the daytime forest, the night forest had a narrow field of vision, with the aerobike's safety support functions reduced by a third. With the increased speed, Rudy was on high alert, dodging the trees. Cal, sitting behind Rudy, held Nina tightly, bound with a rope, and stared ahead from above Rudy's head. Oh no! Suddenly, from behind a tree blocking their path, a long-haired cow with a single horn on its forehead appeared. Rudy, focused on avoiding the trees, missed the creature and shouted without completing his sentence, which was unusual for him. "Get down!" In response to Carl's shout, Rudy lowered himself and his head. "Supreme Slash!" Carl shouted, swinging his large sword sideways. The sword passed above Rudy's head, and a black blade split the air, cleaving through not only the creature but also all the trees in front of them. Carl's nickname was Black Sword. By infusing mana into his large sword and enhancing his body with magic, his slash had the power to cut through even steel. However, he was terrible at any magic other than Supreme Slash. Impressed by Carl's abilities, the aerobike suddenly felt lighter, causing Rudy to panic and look back. He noticed that Carl had lost his balance due to the attack and was about to be thrown into the air along with Nina. Rudy swiftly activated his electronic brain and entered the zone. In an instant, he extended his left hand and grabbed Carl. As their eyes met, Rudy pulled Carl back to the rear seat. "Sorry." "Thanks for saving me." Rudy turned his face forward and nodded while driving the bike. "We're almost at the cliff. Brace yourselves." "Can we make it?" "It's a close call." In response to Carl's worried question, Rudy shouted back, "If they failed to clear the cliff and collided with the wall, they could lose their lives." Nevertheless, Rudy increased the speed, and the aerobike exceeded 150 kilometers per hour. The bike emerged from the forest, and only darkness stretched out beyond the reach of the headlights. "We're flying." "Yeah." The aerobike leapt up high, attempting to fly over the cliff. With enough momentum to make it, Rudy was confident. However, Solaris appeared from the sky on their trajectory. "Why Solaris?" In fact, Rudy and Solaris were both taking the shortest route. Android Solaris had been running from the opposite side at over 100 kilometers per hour, and they coincidentally encountered each other in the middle of the cliff. "Solaris?" "Excuse me," Rudy shouted from the bike, and Carl was amazed by the flying Solaris. Meanwhile, Solaris calmly kicked the aerobike, flying over Rudy and the others. As the bike was kicked by Solaris, its altitude dropped, altering their course to collide with the cliff. "Damn you, Solaris. T/N, lol I love Solaris." Yelling, Rudy pulled up the handlebars, and the front of the aerobike rose high, landing vertically on the cliff. The bike landed on the cliff and began to fall due to gravity. However, Rudy didn't give up. He maxed out the gears, twisted the throttle grip, and the engine roared. Then, the aerobike defied gravity and started climbing the cliff. "Whoa!" Rudy and Carl yelled as the aerobike screamed up the wall, soaring into the air. It made a full turn and landed on top of the cliff. "Ha! Ha! That was really close." "Yeah, I thought we were done for." As Rudy trembled and muttered, Carl wiped the sweat from his forehead. "By the way, Rudy, it might be my imagination, but during our flight, I felt like I saw the maid from the abyss flying from the opposite side. Did you see her?" Carl didn't know that Solaris was an android. Even if what he witnessed earlier was magic, he believed that the physical abilities he saw were impossible. It was Shizo's magic. Rudy dismissed all the wild ideas as Naomi's doing. Carl desperately held back the urge to blurt out that his lie was obvious and could be seen through. Rudy turned the aerobike towards the forest, but, before starting the ride, he contacted Solaris through his electronic brain. "Solaris, we almost fell off the cliff. I'm glad you're safe." According to the information from Nike, it seems that the rescue target is about to be surrounded by enemies, so I'm hurrying as well. "Excuse me." "Hey, wait." He cut me off, Rudy complained, but Solaris ignored him and immediately ended the communication. One could say that they escaped. "I'll remember this. I'll create an app that amplifies her emotions by 3,000 times and make her faint in agony." "What's wrong, Rudy?" Carl spoke up as Rudy gritted his teeth. "It's nothing." Rudy switched his mindset and started the aerobike, heading into the forest. "Abyssama, I believe this way of eating is probably incorrect." "Indeed, it's quite tough." Naomi and France were troubled, facing the cup ramen that Solaris had prepared for dinner. There was an instruction manual for the cup ramen, but unfortunately, neither of them knew the characters of the Galactic Empire. So they simply opened the lid without reading the instructions. That was their mistake. They tried to stab the contents with a fork without adding hot water, but it wouldn't go through. They reluctantly tried to take a bite with their hands, but it was too hard to eat. That's what led to their conversation just now. It actually tastes like something when you lick it. Yes, I see. Perhaps. Did something come to mind? Yes, probably. What if we cook it? Will it become softer? Unfortunately, France wasn't good at cooking. I see. Let's give it a try. Naomi headed to the kitchen and placed the contents of the cup ramen in a frying pan, sorting it with salad oil. However, the cup ramen was made using a non-oil method, so the developers would be in tears. 5 minutes later, it just ended up burnt. No luck, huh? Disappointed and hungry, the two sighed as they looked at the burnt cup ramen on the plate. CH-46. An hour had passed since Rudy left the village. Due to the cow-like creatures and the influence of Solaris's powers, they were currently 10 minutes behind schedule. Nina, whom Carl was embracing, was struggling to breathe, gasping heavily, perhaps due to the fatigue from the journey. Her strength had waned, and her breathing had become shallow. However, she was still alive. Rudy, please hurry. Nina is in danger. It's right in front of you. What do you mean, right in front? Carl directed his gaze forward and saw a thicket blocking their path, just a stone's throw away. Watch out. Carl braced for impact and held Nina tightly, curling his body. However, the airbike slipped through the thicket without colliding with it and emerged into Nmi's house's courtyard. It's a mirage created by Shizo's illusion magic, Rudy explained, causing Carl to break out in a cold sweat of relief. Rudy had already dispelled Nmi's illusion magic barrier, so he could see the thicket. We've finally arrived. Rudy parked the airbike in front of the house, and Nmi and France appeared from the entrance upon hearing the sound of the engine. Rudy, father, how is mother? Nmi and France called out anxiously. We'll talk later. Cal, come with me. Got it. Rudy didn't want to show Cal the underground basement, but the situation was urgent now. Reluctantly, Rudy decided to take Cal to the medical room in the basement. Following Rudy's guidance, Cal, carrying Nina, descended the stairs leading to the basement from the kitchen. At the bottom of the stairs was Rudy's base camp. Cal was amazed, seeing facilities he had never seen before. However, prioritizing Nina's treatment over everything else, he followed Rudy without asking any questions. Excuse us. Upon entering the medical room, Rudy unsheathed his short sword and cut the rope binding Carl and Nina. You're good with that sword. Ha! My sword can't compare to your supreme slash. Carl praised Rudy, who retorted, then called a drone through the wireless communication. Drone, check her condition. Perform blood sampling and a CT scan. Hurry. Following Rudy's orders, two medical drones that had been waiting in the corner of the room started moving. One collected blood from Nina's arm, while the other emitted a green light and scanned Nina, who was lying on the bed. Carl was amazed by the drones but trusted Rudy and silently watched. Rudy, how is Nina doing? Nmi entered the room to check the situation. I'm currently examining her. Since it's not an injury but an illness, we need to prepare various treatment solutions, medicines, and conduct culturing. It will take time, just like when he cured Shizo's cancer, Rudy explained while manipulating the treatment console panel. Then, as the CT scan results appeared on the monitor, Rudy's expression showed disbelief. Nina, are you a resilient fool? Why have you endured so much? Cancer cells have spread throughout your body. Rudy was astonished, but Nina had a reason for enduring it. In space, even in the late stages, curable cancer could be treated, but on this planet, it was an incurable disease. Nina knew her illness couldn't be cured, so she wanted to be with Cal, whom she loved, until the end. That's why she kept it a secret from everyone else. So, will Nina be saved? Well, we'll have to wait a bit, Carl asked, and Rudy typed on the keyboard, searching for the optimal solution for treatment. Uterus, stomach, liver, pancreas, small intestine, large intestine. Practically the entire digestive system is destroyed. It's strange. How is this person still alive? As Rudy muttered, a mix of bewilderment and shock spread across Carl and Nmi's faces. Shizo, Carl, what kind of magic does Nina use? Nina specializes in healing magic. Carl quickly responded to Rudy's question, concluding that Nina's reason for being alive was probably magic. Healing magic? Healing magic is a type of magic that uses mana to cure toxins and illnesses in the body. In terms of magic classification, it falls under the light attribute. Rudy tilted his head in confusion, and this time, Nmi provided a detailed explanation. You can heal illnesses with magic. For things like colds, cavities, and minor injuries and illnesses, yes. But with Nina's condition being this severe, even the most skilled priest would find it impossible. Rudy recalled seeing Sean doing something when he saw Nina in the village and wondered if that was healing magic. Magic is too convenient. If medical technology stagnates because of it, humanity will eventually perish. Rudy shrugged his shoulders and focused back on the monitor. Then, in a low voice that no one else could hear, he began to mutter. I vaguely understood the reason for her survival. With the extent of the metastasis, it would put a tremendous strain on her body to cure it all at once. During the time it takes for a complete recovery, she'll probably have to live in this house. Ah, I hate it, I hate it. Based on Nina's condition, Rudy made slight adjustments to the content of the chemotherapy. He then ordered the drones to transport Nina to the adjacent treatment tank, where she would need to be treated in the nude. Where are you taking her? As the drones attempted to carry Nina away, Carl hurriedly tried to stop them. Cal, calm down. We're going to put Nina in the treatment tank for treatment. It's necessary for her to be completely naked. So, if you don't like it, I can carry her myself. I'm not interested in a married woman, but is it okay if I see Nina naked? Fine, transport her with the drone then. Persuaded by Rudy's words, Carl regained his composure, while Mei, who had been listening to the conversation behind them, desperately tried to suppress her laughter at the mention of a married woman hitting Carl's weak spot. Meanwhile, Dominic and Sean, who had been told by Rudy not to return to the village but to escape into the forest, had successfully escaped from Alfred's soldiers. However, they were now being chased by a different enemy. Sean, this way. No, it's no use, big brother. We're surrounded. Damn it. The two of them were being pursued by ghoul monkeys, man-eating apes measuring about 1.5 meters in length, covered in brown fur, with two large fangs and jagged teeth in their mouths. Those teeth could easily crush bones. They lived in groups on the outskirts of the forest, were nocturnal creatures, and among their prey were rabbits, birds, and pigs, as well as humans. Behind you. I know. Dominic's axe struck down the ghoul monkey that attacked from behind. As the injured ghoul monkey fell to the ground with its shoulder and abdomen sliced open, its companions gathered around and began devouring it while it writhed in pain. The sight of a ghoul monkey being eaten alive made Dominic and Sean instinctively turn their faces away. The ghoul monkey that couldn't join in the meal let out a cry of despair and tried to intimidate the two of them. Then, they were swarmed by the approaching ghoul monkeys. Appear, Sword of Wind. Sean cast magic, and a sword-shaped wind magic swept through the air, defeating the enemies. The ones that approached were repelled by Dominic, who struck them with his battle axe. However, more and more ghoul monkeys appeared from the depths of the forest, surrounding the two of them. They stood back to back, preparing themselves. Oh well, I might not get to see Mother, who might be saved after all. Don't give up. We'll fight till the end. Sean made a frustrated expression, and Dominic scolded him. The ghoul monkeys that had surrounded them gradually closed in. Just as they were about to attack simultaneously, a beam of light blew off the head of one of the ghoul monkeys. What was that? That was. Everyone, regardless of friend or foe, was shocked by the beam of light. Solaris appeared from the darkness of the forest and performed a polite curtsy toward Dominic and Sean. Dominic-sama and Sean-sama, I have come to pick you up. Dominic and Sean thought they were dreaming at Solaris's out-of-place appearance and greeting. CH-47. Suddenly, a ghoul monkey appeared out of nowhere and launched a surprise attack on Solaris from her side. However, Solaris paid no attention and extended her right arm, grabbing the ghoul monkey's fangs as it attempted to bite her and swung it aside. Just that was enough to break the sturdy fangs, sending the creature's body flying far away. What was that just now? Magic? But I don't sense any mana coming from her. Dominic and Sean blinked in astonishment at the brief incident. The ghoul monkey, now cautious of Solaris as a powerful opponent despite her appearance, drew more attention. While everyone was watching, Solaris extended both hands forward. As she did, the parts from her wrists to her fingertips broke off, revealing a carbon skeleton. Furthermore, her wrists made a clanking sound as they transformed into guns. I will eliminate them. Countless bullets of light were fired from her hands, resembling submachine guns. The bullets of light hit the ghoul monkeys one after another, and the screams of the monsters echoed through the forest. Dominic and Sean stood stunned at the sight of the ghoul monkeys being shot and killed. That's amazing. Sean, what kind of magic is that? Judging by the appearance, It seems to be light-based magic. But I've never seen or heard of such a destructive magic before, Sean answered Dominic, but his eyes were fixated on Solaris' gunfire. Even as Dominic and Sean conversed, Solaris' massacre continued. Even if the ghoul monkeys were behind her, their locations were known through the heat source detection information sent by Nike, and she effortlessly finished them off without even looking. Solaris spread her arms and began to rotate. Bullets of light jumped in all directions, further expanding the damage to the ghoul monkeys. 3 seconds until overheating. 2, 1. Ceasefire. Switching to close combat. When the guns became too hot to fire, Solaris returned her arms to their original form. As the gunfire ceased and their comrades were killed, the ghoul monkeys, forgetting about Dominic and Sean's presence, glared at Solaris with anger-filled eyes. However, Solaris, devoid of emotions, felt no fear. Solaris remained unfazed by their stares and reached behind her back to retrieve the legendary sword Yosaku Caliber-chan, chainsaw. VVVVVR. The chainsaw blade spun, and an eerie sound reverberated through the forest. Hearing that sound, the ghoul monkeys all simultaneously displayed expressions of this one's dangerous and forgot their previous anger, fleeing in fear. Elimination complete. As the ghoul monkeys all fled, Solaris, who had turned off Yosaku Caliber-chan's power, murmured. Around her were countless ghoul monkey corpses scattered on the ground. Dominic and Sean, unable to comprehend the events that unfolded so quickly, stood there with their mouths agape. Apologies for keeping you waiting. Solaris approached Dominic and Sean, causing them to recoil in fear. Who are you? I am Mi's servant. My name is Solaris. After introducing herself, Solaris placed Yosaku Caliber-chan back on her back and grabbed her skirt, once again performing a curtsy. So, Mi is the name of the Witch of the Abyss. That means you're the expressionless woman Rudy mentioned. The one who came to retrieve us, right? Upon realizing that Solaris was a servant of Nmi, the Witch of the Abyss, Sean recalled Rudy's words. Putting aside the expressionless part, I am referring to myself. Solaris said so, but her unchanged expression made Dominic and Sean certain of it. I see. I'm Dominic, and this is my younger brother, Sean. Thank you for helping us earlier. Let us express our gratitude once again. I was merely removing obstacles in my mission, so gratitude is unnecessary. Hey, that magic with the balls of light bursting out earlier, did you learn that from the Witch of the Abyss? As Dominic and Solaris engaged in conversation, Sean, who excelled in magic among the two brothers, couldn't contain his curiosity and asked. It is not magic but a feature. A feature? Yes. She wasn't lying. It's just that the other party didn't know about androids. Let's save the discussion about magic for later. Right now, the priority is to move from here. I agree. Sorry about that. Right. So, Solaris-san, are we heading to the Witch of the Abyss house as planned? Yes, I will guide you. Please follow me. Solaris replied and started walking confidently. Dominic and Sean glanced at each other, unable to comprehend the strange woman. She's a mysterious woman. Well, she's the servant of the Witch of the Abyss, after all. True. Dominic and Sean attributed everything they couldn't understand to me and hurriedly followed after Solaris. Vital signs, pulse, breathing, blood pressure. They've all returned to normal. It was a close call, but Nina's condition is improving. The cancer cells are decreasing steadily. She should recover without the need for surgical removal. In the medical room, Rudy was examining the monitor's data, checking Nina's condition. From behind him, Nmi approached, concerned about Nina's well-being. Rudy, how is Nina doing? She's recovering fine without any issues. Vital signs have returned to normal, except for consciousness. Cancer cells are slowly decreasing. Complete remission in 2 weeks. No, complete recovery, followed by a week of rehabilitation. Cal, who had been listening behind me, collapsed to the floor as if his legs had given way, relieved beyond words. It really didn't feel like I was alive. And Nina, when we got married, we promised we wouldn't keep secrets from each other. Well, don't be so angry. Nina probably kept it hidden because she didn't want to worry you. Me comforted Carl by placing her hand on his shoulder while he sat on the floor muttering complaints. By the way, Rudy. Yeah? I haven't eaten anything since noon. Rudy tilted his head in response to Mi's words. Solaris, Didn't you make any food? It seems she was in a hurry and left the house without preparing anything except for portable rations. What happened to those portable rations? It appears she failed to make them properly and couldn't eat them. Rudy tilted his head again at that response. Failed to make portable rations? What does that mean? Rudy couldn't understand how Solaris could fail at making something as simple as portable rations. Come to think of it, I haven't eaten anything since noon either. Rudy recalled that he hadn't eaten either, and his stomach growled, "Rah. Well, calm down, stomach. Alright, let's go make a late night snack. Cal, join us if you want to eat. I don't feel like eating anything now. But if I don't eat, I'll collapse." "I'll have some." Cal, who had been living as an adventurer for a long time, always prioritized taking care of his health. He decided to eat, albeit reluctantly, when Rudy invited him. "Then let's go back to the first floor." Rudy got up from his seat and helped Cal up, then they headed upstairs to prepare some food. 5 horses raced along the highway from the village at the entrance of the forest towards the capital. Mounted on one of the horses was Alfred, whose face was swollen and disfigured, accompanied by his soldiers. Damn it, I won't forgive them. Especially that brat, I will never forgive him." After Rudy and the others escaped, Alfred took out his anger on the village chief, cutting him down with his sword. Amidst the screams, he spat on the fallen village chief and left the village on his horse. His destination was the capital, where his father resided. "The Witch of the Abyss, it's all her fault. I'll ask my father to kill her. Let her experience what happens when he disrespects a noble." Revenge. Alfred's soldiers grimaced at his resentful words. But they didn't know. High above in space, from the satellite cameras of Nike, Hal was observing their actions. CH-48. As Rudy and the others climbed the stairs and reached the first floor, Franz hurriedly ran towards them in the living room. "Father, how is Mother's condition?" "Don't worry, she managed to survive somehow." "Really? That's a relief." Franz felt relieved upon hearing Carl's response. Rudy and me smiled, glad that they made it in time for Franz, who was thinking about his mother. However, as Rudy shifted his gaze towards the living room, his body stiffened upon seeing something. It was dark matter. The remnants of a burnt cup ramen. What is this? It's incredible. When Rudy heard from me that she hadn't eaten anything, he assumed it was just a matter of not adding enough hot water or miscalculating the waiting time. Even if the cup ramen tasted bad, it could still be eaten. So, he couldn't understand why it couldn't be eaten due to a cooking mishap. But upon witnessing the tragedy, he understood. "Could it be that you didn't use hot water?" Rudy lifted the plate with the cup ramen and asked me, who blinked her eyes. "Hot water? Was this how it's supposed to be cooked?" "Cooked? Well, it's not completely inedible, but... damn it, that fool from Solaris should have explained how to make it." Rudy sighed and silently threw away the burnt cup ramen into the trash can. Standing in the kitchen, Rudy decided to serve everyone coffee first before preparing a late-night snack. None of them had eaten anything since noon, and it was already past 9 p.m. It would be better to avoid high-calorie foods with oil and such. While Rudy was contemplating, something happened. "Bitter. It's so bitter." Ha 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 ha. After the screams of Carl and Franz, laughter could be heard from the living room, presumably coming from me. "She seems to be enjoying herself. But sometimes when she's alone, she has a gloomy expression." Rudy, unaware of Mi's past, thought that if she wanted to talk about it, she would approach him, and he started cooking. "You guys have been waiting for a while. Today's dish is pho." Rudy entered the living room with a large pot, and the hungry trio sat at the dining table. "Pho, da. In response to Mi's question, Rudy placed the pot on a trivet and opened the lid. A delightful aroma of miso-based stewed pumpkin wafted out. "It's a mixed dish inspired by Japanese cuisine called hauta but without the noodles, and instead, I've added Vietnamese pho." The seasoning includes dried shiitake mushrooms, miso, nampla fish sauce, and it's loaded with ingredients like pumpkin, pork, shinji mushrooms, enoki mushrooms, carrots, and ginger as a hidden flavor. Mi nodded with approval at the explanation, and Carl and Franz, seeing Rudy's dish for the first time, were captivated by the simmering and bubbling pho. "Hey, Mi, are you eating such delicious food every day?" "Well, it's even more extravagant on regular days. Isn't it, Rudy?" Upon Carl's question, Mi smiled and replied. Then Rudy nodded when the conversation was directed at him. "Today's dish is a simple one because we're short on time." Seriously. While the three were talking, Franz used tongs and a ladle to serve the dish from the pot. It wasn't because he was a helper or a master of the pot. He simply wanted to eat quickly. Raise your hand if you drink alcohol. While Franz was serving the food, Rudy asked a question, and only Nmi raised her hand. I drink. I refrain from drinking when my wife is unwell. I don't drink. With that said, Rudy served Nmi and himself a brand of Japanese sake called Unibaba Killer, while he served Carl and Franz green tea. With the food and drinks ready, everyone began to eat the pho. When Rudy took a sip of the pho broth, he tasted the sweetness of pumpkin, combined with miso and fish sauce. The umami flavor from the ingredients, including shiitake mushrooms, permeated his mouth. The noodles in the pho absorbed the flavors and were delicious as well. Satisfied, Rudy looked at the others. With their hunger acting as their motivation, everyone was engrossed in eating and going for seconds. You guys eat so fast. Rudy also joined in, swiftly scooping up a small dish of pho and getting himself a second serving. An hour had passed since Solaris rescued Dominic and Sean in the dark forest. The three of them were relying on Sean's magic light to navigate through the darkness. After an intense battle, they had been walking without food or water, and Sean, whose energy was running low, had reached his limit. The battery usage of Solaris's internal power source was still at 67%. So even if she continued walking for 3 more days, she would have enough power. Brother, I want to rest soon. Yeah, I agree. Dominic nodded in response to Sean's voice. Then, he called out to Solaris, who was walking ahead without getting tired. Solaris, shouldn't we take a break soon? Understood. Let's rest here for today. Solaris stopped abruptly and turned around. The two of them felt relieved and sat down in a suitable spot, while Solaris also knelt on the nearby ground. Sean, do you have any food? When we left the village, we didn't bring anything. There's no way. Yeah, you're right. We should have at least brought water. Sean was capable of creating water with his magic, but the water he created was fake, so it wouldn't quench their thirst. If Solaris had emotions, she would have considered bringing food and water for them before going on the rescue mission. However, the order she received was simply to go and retrieve them, so she didn't bring anything except a chainsaw for self-defense. Food and water were necessary for a rescue mission. Solaris observed the conversation between the two and stood up, opening her mouth. I will secure water and food. Please wait here for about 2 hours. What? Huh? The two were left dumbfounded as Solaris quickly disappeared into the forest. Hey, brother, who is Solaris? How should I know? Left behind in this place. The two decided to hide so as not to be found by wild animals and simply had to trust her for now. CH-49. After Rudy and the others finished devouring the pho, Franz raised his hand and volunteered to wash the dishes. Rudy didn't want Franz to touch anything in the house, but he couldn't just bring out the drone in front of them, so he decided to let Franz do the dishwashing. Franz was surprised that simply turning the faucet not only produced water but hot water as well. He was also amazed at the effectiveness of the dishwashing detergent. In reality, there was an automatic dishwasher, so there was no need to wash the dishes by hand. However, Rudy kept it a secret from Franz because the automatic dishwasher was considered over-the-top technology. Rudy apologized silently to Franz in his mind, saying, "Sorry, Franz." With Franz taking care of the dishes, the three of them sat on the living room sofa and discussed the room arrangements for the night. Let's have Franz use the guest room on the first floor, and you can stay in the basement, Rudy suggested. Yeah, if possible, I'd like to be near Nina, Franz replied. Is that okay with you, Rudy? Nmi asked. I'll lock the other rooms. Feel free to sleep wherever. I'll lend you a blanket, Rudy said. Upon Rudy's approval, Carl bowed his head. I'm really grateful to you for everything, Rudy. As long as you keep it a secret, I won't say anything. And besides, it's all magic, Rudy replied. Hey. Nmi couldn't help but interject at Rudy's response, but he calmly shook his head from side to side. That's the way it is, Rudy replied. Nmi sighed, thinking to herself, so this is what it means to provide me with food, clothing, and shelter. There's a limit to using me as a cover, too, she added. It's good that you understand, Rudy nodded, but Cal, who had been listening to the conversation, thought it might be too much. After finishing washing the dishes, Franz returned to the living room, and the topic of conversation shifted to the events in the village. Alfred, huh? Carl's remark made me frown. Do you know him? He asked. He's the Lord of Dead Forest, including this forest. So, yeah, I know him. I've never met Alfred himself, but I've heard he's just as arrogant, selfish, and tyrannical as his father, Carl replied. That's true. If I hadn't been carrying Nina at that time, I would have done something, Carl chimed in. What would you have done? Nmi asked, and Carl made a joke, making her laugh. I had a chance to meet the previous lord once before entering the forest. For a noble, he was a decent person. It seems he failed at parenting, though, Carl explained in response to Franz's question. The old man died about a year ago, I think. Taxes have skyrocketed since the change in leadership. Well, I've never paid them, Nmi said, shrugging her shoulders. Truly the magic of Shizu. Rudy exclaimed. Wait, you're praising her now? But isn't not paying taxes bad? Franz tilted his head, not understanding the reason. Franz, what are you saying? Not paying taxes is like living the dream of a lifetime. Rudy explained. Sigh, Franz sighed, unconvinced. As Rudy insisted, Franz backed away, while me and Carl burst into laughter. In my opinion, that brat Alfred isn't going to just sit back and do nothing, Carl said, his laughter turning into a serious expression. It's going to be troublesome, Nmi sighed. As Nmi expressed her exasperation, the front door slammed open, and Solaris entered the house. I'm back. Solaris? Didn't you say you would be back in 2 days? Yes, I just came to get supplies. In response to Nmi's question, Solaris answered and quickly headed towards the basement. What kind of supplies? Nmi tilted her head, perplexed. Franz, who was preoccupied with something else, spoke up. More importantly, what happened to my brothers? That's right. They're my children, so I don't think they'll die easily. But I'm concerned, Carl added. While the three of them worried about Dominic and Sean, Rudy remained silent, listening intently to the urgent report he received from Hal. That's the situation. That Alfred is truly despicable. Is it normal to kill someone out of spite? I only know human psychology based on data, but his actions would undoubtedly result in a labor sentence of over 10 years in the Galactic Empire. This planet is beyond the jurisdiction of the law, so that doesn't matter. What's more important is why he's in such a hurry. I don't have the audio, but based on the direction, it seems he's headed towards the largest city in this vicinity. A city? Huh? How big is the population? Estimated to be around 10,000. That's not small. It's relatively densely populated for this planet. Yeah, I guess so. He's the Lord's son, so he'll probably run to his father for help. Well, let me know if anything happens. Yes, Master. During the conversation with Hal, Rudy thought that it was becoming troublesome, just like Nmi mentioned earlier. After a while, Solaris returned with a bag on her back. Solaris, why did you come back alone? What happened to Carl's sons who went to help? And what's in that bag? As Nmi bombarded Solaris with consecutive questions, she stopped in her tracks. I'm in a hurry, so I'll answer briefly. Dominic-sama and Sean-sama are currently resting about 60 kilometers away from here, but they have stopped their activities due to a lack of supplies. I came here to secure supplies, and the contents of this bag are the supplies. So you're saying you only care about retrieval? Are you an idiot to forget about water and food? Nmi snapped. Rudy let out a sigh upon hearing Solaris' explanation and interrupted the conversation. Solaris, it's not that she forgot. She just deemed them unnecessary based on the mission requirements. Emotions sometimes lead to flexible thinking. You're going to run back there anyway, right? Since you've come this far, use the aerobike to transport them. The aerobike is designed for 2 people. You're being stubborn. If you push it, 3 people can ride on the aerobike. You saw it yourself when I brought Carl and Nina, Rudy insisted. After Rudy's words, Solar responded for a moment before nodding. You're right. Enough already, just go quickly. Understood. Excuse me then. Solaris bowed and prepared to leave the bag she was carrying before heading out of the house. Wait. Rudy called out to stop her. But Solaris questioned, is there something else? It's not just something. Why are you leaving behind the supplies? If we're going to transport them on the aerobike, aren't they unnecessary? At Solaris' retort, Rudy let out yet another sigh. You lack kindness. They're waiting, they're hungry, so take the supplies with you. I understand. I apologize for that. I will take them this time. Solaris said so, picked up the bag she was carrying, and finally left the house. Rudy, don't you think you went a bit too far just now? Franz spoke up, concerned, and Rudy shook his head. That's the result she desired. I can't say anything more. She truly is an idiot. As Rudy made that remark, there was a hint of frustration on his face. Sigh. Seeing Rudy become silent, Franz and Carl looked at me, seeking an explanation. However, she just shook her head and gave up, showing signs of resignation. CH-50. Solaris had separated from Dominic and Sean, and 2 hours had passed. The two of them were hiding in the shadow of a large tree when Sean's detection magic sensed the mana of a large-scale magical beast. Brother, a large-scale monster is approaching. No wonder, it's the demon forest where monsters dwell. Haven't seen a large-scale magical creature in a while. The Abyss Witch who lives in a place like this is also a monster. Indeed, she might be. So, can we get through this? It depends on how close it gets. As the two of them held their breath, the sound of rustling grass drew nearer. Dominic relied on the starlight, squinting to identify the approaching figure. Emerging from the darkness was a gigantic spider, about 3 times the size of a human. Is that a Baculus? Next to him, Sean, realizing who was approaching, swallowed hard and murmured under his breath. Baculus, a huge spider that possessed paralyzing venom. It would spit its venom at its prey, paralyze them, wrap them in silk, and take them back to its nest to consume them while still alive. It could easily blow away humans with a swing of its arms and was also quite fast in movement. However, it had a weakness to fire. Can't we drive it away with magic? No chance. Dominic turned to Sean, who shook his head. While Sean excelled in water-based magic, he was weak against fire-based spells. On the other hand, Dominic, resembling his father, preferred physical attacks with an axe and was practically unable to use magic. Dominic looked back at Baculus and became pessimistic. We could easily dispatch Baculus with a single magic spell, and Carl was monstrously powerful, so he could easily defeat a Baculus. However, for the two of them who still clung to their humanity, Baculus was an unbeatable enemy. While praying that they could pass unnoticed, Baculus suddenly stopped and changed direction, facing their way. Did it notice them? Just as Dominic grabbed the handle of his battle axe on his back, the sound of an engine came from within the forest. Baculus turned its attention towards the approaching engine noise. After a while, Solaris appeared riding an aerobike from deep within the forest. Solaris parked the aerobike and approached them, ignoring Baculus. Run, run. Dominic and Sean conveyed the message to run through gestures, but she didn't notice at all and approached them casually. I've brought food and water. I also came on the aerobike. Whoops. Before Solaris could finish her sentence, Baculus pounced and sent her flying with its massive forearm. Why didn't Solaris fight? During the Ghoul Monkey incident, Dominic and the others were engaged in combat, so she considered them hostile and eliminated them. However, this time there was no battle taking place, and she judged Baculus as a harmless creature. If Solaris had emotions, she might have felt fear of death and eliminated Baculus. But as an emotionless being, she didn't feel fear when facing Baculus and let her guard down. As a result, she was caught off guard and sent rolling through the grass. Solaris will help, Sean shouted, and Dominic slapped Sean's arm before getting up. Sean began casting magic, while Dominic drew his battle axe and confronted Baculus. Guardian of Water. Sean's magic was activated, enveloping Dominic's body in a watery film. He had cast a water membrane spell that provided resistance against poison. With this, Dominic could endure Baculus' poison up to 3 times. Dominic attacked Baculus from behind. His battle axe struck deep into its back, causing Baculus to emit a high-pitched scream. Baculus began to move its legs, circling around the two of them. Having successfully launched a preemptive attack, Dominic continued his assault and severed one of its legs. Baculus, changing its direction, spewed venomous saliva. This attack was blocked by the watery film created by Sean's magic. In response, Baculus spat out silk from its mouth, knowing that its venom wouldn't work. Damn it! Dominic shouted as he became entangled in the silk, immobilizing him. Baculus approached, opening its mouth, ready to crush Dominic's head. But before it could, Solaris, who had revived, appeared from the side and struck Baculus in the abdomen. The impact sent Baculus flying to the side. Solaris, Dominic and Sean widened their eyes in astonishment as Solaris, with a single punch, sent the gigantic spider flying. As a result, the left side of Solaris's face, along with the artificial skin and hair, peeled off, revealing glimpses of her skull. Her tattered maid uniform revealed her arms on both sides, devoid of artificial skin and muscles, with an enhanced carbon skeleton exposed. "I will eliminate it." Solaris attempted to transform her arms into a laser gun by extending them forward. However, her hands trembled in the midst of transformation, and they failed to turn into guns. Left arm damage rate, 70%. Right hand damage rate, 40%. Unable to switch to sniper mode. Automatic repair initiated. Energy shortage due to repairs. Close quarters combat mode continues. Halting the sniper mode, Solaris grabbed the silk entangling Dominic and swiftly removed it from his body. "Please wait a moment." Without paying any attention to Dominic, Solaris walked towards Baculars. "Wait." "Solaris, are you injured?" Observing Solaris's body, Dominic tilted his head in confusion. Indeed, Solaris was injured, but there was no blood, and she didn't seem to be in pain. Moreover, why were there metallic components inside her body? The extent of Solaris's injuries surpassed Dominic's understanding, as he was unaware of her being a robot. "I will fight alongside you." "There is no problem with me alone," Solaris called out to the two of them, confident that she alone would suffice. "It doesn't work that way. If something were to happen to you, we wouldn't be able to face the Abyss Witch." "Exactly." Solaris, step back. Both Dominic and Sean stepped forward, determined to protect Solaris. "No issues. I am more than capable." Solaris disregarded their concerns and focused her attention on Baculars. While observing Dominic and Sean struggling against Baculars, Solaris pondered. Earlier, Rudy had mentioned that she lacked kindness. But what exactly is kindness? According to the data of Her Anything for You Haruko-chan, kindness is having a compassionate heart towards others. However, she didn't understand what that heart actually meant. Humans were said to possess that heart, unlike AIs. In that case, was it impossible for her, a heartless being, to acquire kindness? Dominic and Sean were fighting against hostile creatures to protect her, an injured and malfunctioning individual. According to her analysis, despite the opponent being injured, the power gap was clearly in the creature's favor. Risking one's own life to protect others, is that what a heart is? Is it kindness? At that moment, a log that was supposed to be erased resurfaced in Solaris's memory cache. It was a memory from when she was the AI manager of the cruiser Bianca Flair, where she fought alongside her crew. Memories of comrades who trusted and relied on each other. Baculars, which they were fighting against, became serious. Its eyes turned red with aggressive intent, and green venomous saliva dripped from its mouth. Smoke rose from its severed back as its regenerative ability kicked in, healing the wounds. Seeing the situation, Dominic and Sean held their breath. In that moment, Solaris pushed through between Dominic and Sean and stepped forward. "Solaris?" Sean, surprised, spoke to Solaris's back, and she loudly proclaimed to the two of them, "I am Solaris, the AI manager of the Imperial Special Fleet cruiser Bianca Flair. Though I may be the descendant of the former crew, I will fight alongside you." Solaris revealed her true identity with great fervor. "If you just want to support me or have a particular novel in mind that you'd like to request, please join my Ko-fi or Patreon. The links are below." Once again, thank you Momo Clan.